21. Likard Orbital Space Station. Everyone was staring at him, and Blood Pigeon felt a flush of embarrassment. He straightened, trying to look nonchalant. Qin Yun stepped up and asked, "Have you flown a plane before?" "I've flown a trainer under someone's guidance," Blood Pigeon answered. "You've flown a trainer?" Qin Yun considered for a moment and then nodded. "All right, I'll entrust this mission to you. If you can get the Valkyrie flying properly, you'll be promoted to Fighter Commander of the Imperial Glory, and you'll get 30,000 contribution points." A ripple of envy ran through the other players. "Professional skills really matter," someone murmured. "This is why studying pays off." "Promoted to Fighter Commander. Is that rank Major or Lieutenant Colonel?" Another gamed. "Jealousy, envy, hatred. This is the first time I regret slacking off in school," someone else groaned. "If I'd known, I'd have studied properly instead of daydreaming about my English teacher." "You hit on a teacher? Really? Was she pretty? Did you succeed?" "No other reason. I just need the closure to properly despise you," another joked. "Do professional skills and real-world knowledge unlock hidden gameplay?" someone asked quietly. Seeing the players clamoring, Old Bird, Ma Xiaohou, and Jua Bao, who were still students, exchanged looks and silently vowed to study harder. Knowledge had value in this game, too. Blood Pigeon climbed into the Valkyrie cockpit and found himself staring at a dense maze of instruments and buttons. His head swam. "I need a co-pilot," he said after a moment. Once he'd familiarized himself with the layout, he climbed out and turned to Qin Yun. "It should be someone quick-thinking and obedient." Qin Yun announced to the group, "Who wants to be his co-pilot? Reward, Fighter Co-Commander, and 10,000 contribution points." "Me. Pick me." Hands shot up. "Choose me. I'm smart, diligent, and eager to learn." Players clamored, hopeful. Beyond the contribution points, learning to fly a Valkyrie was an enormous opportunity. The game rewarded knowledge and detail. The more you understood, the more hidden systems you could unlock. "He's your choice," Qin Yun said, handing the decision to Blood Pigeon. "Choose me," one player called. "I'll transfer you 5,000 offline." "Forget money. Pick me and I'll introduce you to a junior sister I just met." "Hey!" Qin Yun cut them off. "Bribery is a serious violation." The players fell silent, faces fixed on Blood Pigeon. He hesitated only briefly before choosing Nilong. Nilong had been one of the experienced players assigned to guide him when he first joined, a familiar, reliable presence. Nilong practically leaped to his side. "I knew a gem like me couldn't stay hidden." The rest rolled their eyes. Nilong had simply benefited from leading a newbie, not some miraculous talent. Blood Pigeon and Nilong ignored the whispers and began studying the Valkyrie's controls with the manual. To give them space, Qin Yun sent the other players off to complete daily quests and kept only the mechanically inclined, Old Bird, Ma Xiaohou, Zhuogen Bao, and a few others, to assist the pair. After making those arrangements, Qin Yun went to the Praying Sanctuary to check when new reservation slots would open. He didn't plan to release all the slots at once. Some would be held back for players with particular skills and professional knowledge. To keep the Imperial Glory operational and carry out the Emperor's missions, they needed logistics and technical specialists as much as fighters. He planned to recruit pilots, engineers, and other specialists through Old Bird's contacts, through Blood Pigeon, and by actively seeking talent elsewhere. While he was weighing recruitment plans, a golden hollow screen flickered up in front of him. Mission: assist the Loyalists in recapturing Atoma Planet. Atoma Planet is engulfed in war due to a cultist rebellion. Imperial citizens wait day and night for the Emperor's salvation. Defeat the forces that have laid the citizens low and restore normal life. Reward: a pair of flight wings, epic. Qin Yun prayed to the Emperor, learned the schedule for the next reservation slots, then went to the command hall and checked the chat group. Outside the game, Qian Donglai sighed. "I didn't expect the game to need so much specialized knowledge. What am I, a finance guy, supposed to do?" He hoped the developers would add farming or administrative roles later, planetary governor, reform supervisor, anything to make his skills useful. For now, he decided, being a psyker would have to do. In the group chat, the usual chaos unfolded. Gilliman is the only son complained about people playing instead of chatting. One night output Slanesh 10 times posted the day's updates, and the admin muted the group so everyone could actually see the news. One night output /10 times. After a series of battles, the players cleared the underside decks of mutants and regained control of the Imperial glory. Guide adults had several players restart the reactor and restore the ship to operation. A new Flight Academy student accepted a mission to learn to pilot a Valkyrie and will head to Adoma planet to open a new map. Warhammer OL and real-world knowledge intersect. Specialized skills give you a better start and can unlock hidden gameplay. That's all for today's insights. Qin Yun, lurking, then posted the video of Old Bird restarting the reactor. The clip drew both players who were logged off and people still waiting for access. "This gameplay is so rich," one spectator said. "It looks exactly like the real thing." 50 slots will be released tomorrow. The group owner, corporate slave captured by the Emperor, announced. Plus, the company is handing out special invitations to players with professional knowledge and skills to join the closed beta. "Can an auto mechanic get in?" asked one. "Send proof of your skill. If approved, you'll get a slot," the owner replied. Programmers, engineers, repairmen, anyone with expertise could apply. Back on the Imperial glory, Blood Pigeon and Nai Long had finally coaxed the Valkyrie into full operation. They took off, circled the ship a few times, and practiced landings. Valkyries couldn't operate in deep void, but they could handle low orbit and ship-to-ground missions. Satisfied that they could take off and land safely, Qin Yun decided their first objective would be to scout Likard's largest orbital platform rather than send the Imperial glory straight to Toma. If the orbital station had fallen to rebels, a Moon-class battleship would be too exposed. One salvo could cripple them. A Valkyrie, by contrast, would be a much smaller loss if things went wrong. He selected the 20 most combat-capable players for the sortie. The rest would remain aboard the Imperial glory under Old Bird's command to continue repairs and to get the soon-to-be-online newcomers acquainted with the ship. All aboard, Blood Pigeon and Nai Long followed the takeoff checklist. The hangar doors opened, the Valkyrie eased out on the runway, and the thrusters flared. Once clear of the ship, the engines spat a plasma glow as they pushed into the void toward Likard's orbital station. Space stretched vast and black. Without nearby reference points, the Valkyrie felt tiny and almost motionless. But half an hour later, a small black speck on the void's horizon swelled into an enormous structure. The station was 100 kilometers across, an immense rugby ball-shaped fortress. Around it, burning wreckage floated, some debris still flaring. Bodies drifted in the vacuum, most clad in double-headed eagle uniforms. The players stared, pale and silent, through the portholes. "Is this a battlefield?" someone whispered. "It's terrifying. So many corpses," another said. Qin Yun kept sending hails to the station, but there was no reply at first. Only as they closed, and could see the wreckage and bodies with their own eyes, did the comms finally respond. A hoarse, mechanical voice came through the Valkyrie's speakers. "Welcome to Likard Orbital Space Station, stranger." Qin Yun answered, "I am the captain of the Imperial glory. State your name and position." "I will tell you, but not yet," the voice replied. "What do you mean?" Qin Yun demanded. "Current data suggests your probability of being loyalists is only 22.54%, the voice said flatly. "We are 100% loyal to the Emperor," Qin Yun snapped. "Then prove it," the station said. "Proceed to entrance Y107H. A group of cultists is entrenched there. Eliminate them." "How do we know what faction you are? Are you testing us?" Qin Yun asked. A faint edge of mockery crept into the mechanical tone. "If I wanted to destroy you, I could press one button. The station's weapon systems would obliterate an unshielded Valkyrie instantly. Were it not for this Valkyrie's machine spirit bearing the blessing of the Omnissiah, you would already be dead." The other party's words left Qin Yun momentarily speechless. He glanced at Blood Pigeon, who was piloting the Valkyrie. Blood Pigeon looked awkward and muttered, "Sorry. Forget it." Qin Yun shook his head. A freshman just admitted to the Flight Academy. Getting a Valkyrie airborne at all was impressive. "All right, we'll enter through entrance Y107H. Once you prove your loyalty, I will tell you my identity and position," the voice replied. "Data transfer request detected. Do you accept?" A prompt flickered on the Valkyrie's display. After a beat, Qin Yun accepted. A holographic layout of Lycard Orbital Space Station sprang up on the tactical projector, and entrance Y-107H lit up. "Go there," Qin Yun said, pointing to the map. "Understood." Blood Pigeon adjusted course. Guided by the other side, the Valkyrie slipped into Lycard through entrance Y-107H. The thrusters roared as it descended onto an empty landing pad. When the hatch opened, the fully armed players, led by Qin Yun, stepped out with weapons ready. The scene around the pad was a ruin. Battle damage scarred everything: blown pipes, sparking conduits, unstable lumen lights flickering. Bodies in Imperial uniforms hung from chains and girders. Some had their eyes gouged out and their skin flayed away. Where the Aquila should have been, someone had gouged out the emblem and smeared the metal with blood in an 8-pointed star. "So many dead," Zhongyi said, staring at the corpses. Xiaopang shrugged. "Living in a place like this, it's just depressing." "Warhammer's usual aesthetic," Bald Donkey said with a casual shrug. "The official setting doesn't hold back." Qin Yun gripped a bolter in one hand and a power sword in the other, scanning for threats. The mysterious voice came over the comm again. "Now it's time to prove your loyalty. The traitors have noses like hounds. They've already picked up your scent. If you don't want to die, prepare for battle." Data transfer request detected. "Do you agree to allow the thinker installed in the armor to receive it?" "Agree." As the data flowed in, Qin Yun felt the familiar hum of the power armor's built-in thinker awaken. Pulse laser markers traced the edge of his visor, and a holographic overlay showed their location and surrounding layout. Hundreds of red blips were converging on their position. "Prepare for battle. Enemies incoming," Qin Yun barked. The players scrambled for cover. The enemy, probably over 100 of them, came into view, ragged figures with multicolored hair and bodies carved with chaotic sigils. Their weapons varied. Laser rifles, crude maces, and a few spike-covered chariots rolled along with heavy guns mounted on their roofs. Qin Yun waited until they were close, then exploded from cover. "Open fire! Eliminate them! Bang! Bang!" Several cultists dropped where they stood. Bolter rounds sent bodies flying. The other players poured fire into the ramshackle horde. Xiaopang and 2 teammates set up a multi-barrel laser heavy machine gun and tore into the mass. The cultists fell like grain under a scythe. One chariot's fuel tank took a hit and detonated in a blaze. Panic spread through the attackers. They began to scatter. Walker, the cultist leader, watched his followers flee, grabbed his lumber gun, and shot the fastest runner. He bellowed over the chaos. "No one runs. Pick up your weapons and fight." The lumber gun was huge and recoiled like a beast, normally mounted on a tripod or vehicle, but Walker's mods let him shoulder it. He cradled the gun with one hand and fed rounds with the other, sweeping suppression fire at the players. "Smoke!" Bald Donkey shouted, lobbed a grenade and called, "Frag out!" Explosions ripped through cover. More cultists were shredded. Qin Yun watched Bald Donkey's throws with a flicker of surprise. His accuracy suggested a very high throwing skill. "Hold steady. They're not that many," Qin Yun called. He decided to take Walker out first. "Smoke for me. Block their sight," Qin Yun told Bald Donkey. "On it." Bald Donkey tossed another grenade. Smoke. White vapor billowed, obscuring the cultist's view. Qin Yun leapt from cover with his power sword ignited. Bullets pinged off his armor, ineffective. His bolter rounds made the cultists' bodies explode on impact. In moments 7 or 8, attackers were torn apart, gore splattering the deck. Qin Yun closed in on Walker and brought the power sword down. Walker raised the lumber gun to block. The sword split the gun's barrel apart in a flash of heat. Walker was bisected and died instantly. As the smoke thinned, the remaining cultists saw their leader fall and fled. "It seems your combat power is considerable," the voice said over the comm as the fight ended. "Now can you tell me your name and position?" Qin Yun answered. "No rush. Since you've defeated those cultists, please restore power to the area. There's a relay station along the way." Data transfer request detected. "Do you agree to allow the thinker installed in the armor to receive it?" "Agree." Qin Yun left 2 players to ferry the wounded back to the Valkyrie while he led the rest toward the relay. They encountered more cultists and a few plague zombies, which they dispatched without trouble. At the relay station, they rebooted the systems. Lumen lights steadied, sentry turrets reawakened, and automatic autocannons began tearing down the remaining traitors. When they stepped out, the corridor was littered with bodies, cultists and zombies alike, shot down by the station's defenses. The path ahead was clear. At the end of the corridor, a heavy hatch rolled open to a massive data control hall where alarm lights spun. Two war servitors and a line of tech guard troopers holding las guns blocked the room. A figure cleared them, a woman in a red robe, her face a mask of metal, and the lower half of her body replaced by a tracked chassis. She moved with the precision of servos and stepped forward between the servitors. "Praise the Omnissiah," she intoned. "I did not expect reinforcements." "My name is Oz Tina," she added. "I am a Mechanicus priest assigned to the maintenance of Likard Space Station. I apologize for guiding you in such a manner," she said. "If you were traitors, revealing my position would have doomed me to a fate worse than those flayed corpses." "I understand your caution," Qin Yun replied. "It looks like we've earned your trust." "Your loyalty to the Omnissiah has been confirmed," Oz Tina said with a slight inclination of her head. "Please accept my gratitude." "Holy crap, a female oilhead," someone shouted. "A new NPC?" another player squealed. "Oh my god, we're actually contacted another faction. The Adeptus Mechanicus is here. Are the Astartes far behind? The Knights? I want a red robe and oilhead implants," someone else exclaimed. "Praise the Omnissiah." "Don't dream too big," another player muttered. "With your brain, you'll be lucky to sit next to the two idiots over there." The players erupted in excited chatter. After all their hard work, they had finally unlocked a new map and made contact with another faction. P.S. Here's an Inquisitor meme. The Mechanicus lady has arrived, and NPC number 2 will soon offer enhancement services to players. If you like it, continue reading and vote. Oz Tina watched the cheering players. She could understand most of what they said, but sometimes their words collapsed into chaotic static. Even her language systems, anti-interference routines, and decryption layers could not eliminate it. The anomaly made her uneasy. Qin Yun saw the change in her expression and realized she had noticed the same thing. He moved to be frank to gain her trust. "Is this a good time to talk privately, Priest Tina? There are some things we should discuss away from the crowd." Tina hesitated, then nodded. Thinker wetware and calculating servitors lined the metal walls, their beeps filling the room. Over a dozen projection interfaces hovered, casting pale light. They walked into the inner data control room, away from the players. "You've probably already realized we're not entirely ordinary," Qin Yun said, getting straight to the point. "Those outside aren't normal civilians. They are the God-chosen, blessed by the Omnissiah, walking the stars to do his will." Tina's eyes widened. The metal inlaid around her face betrayed nothing, but the surprise was clear. "Your claim lacks sufficient data to prove you are envoys of the Omnissiah," she replied. Qin Yun smiled faintly. "Can this prove it?" He extended his hand and activated a skill he carried, the Emperor's Light. Golden radiance swirled between his fingers. "Cadia has fallen. The forces of chaos are invading Holy Terra on an unprecedented scale. Humanity faces one of the darkest ends, but the Omnissiah is humanity's greatest psyker. The appearance of the Great Rift has strengthened those demons, but it has also granted the Emperor greater power. He chose me to be a living saint, to lead the chosen, temper them, and prepare for the final war." A servo skull connected to Oz Tina's spine buzzed and drifted out, scanning the light in Qin Yun's palm. Data flooded into Tina's processing core. The analysis matched. The radiance thrilled machine spirits and suppressed warp phenomena. It fit recorded characteristics of the Omnissiah's might. Her computational load spiked. Auxiliary logic modules spun at full speed. Heat vents sighed, and hot steam hissed. Qin Yun caught a faint scent like roasted flesh and frowned, worried she might overload. After a long pause, Tina's processors finished. She chose to trust him. In an era already plunged into chaos and darkness, the appearance of the Omnissiah's chosen was not impossible. She bowed her head, the sounds of spinal gears turning echoing in the control room. "Holy Omnissiah above, what should I call you?" "You may call me the guide," Qin Yun said with a relieved breath. If Tina had refused to accept him, they would have lost access to the entire area's automatic defenses. A single thought of hers could have torn them apart. "Thank you for your trust, Priest Tina. With your help, we can better complete the Emperor's mission and protect humanity." "I will do everything I can, guide. What is our next mission?" First priority is to clear the surface rebels and help the Loyalists retake Atoma planet. How familiar are you with the situation on the surface? Tina shook her head. I know nothing of the surface fighting. The Likard space station's communications went dark after a virus released by the rebels. It no longer receives transmission from ground or void, Qin Yun explained. How did you contact us then? She asked. I have a small communications module implanted. It can send and receive within a limited range. Qin Yun considered his options. We should retake Likard first. It has massive ports and shipyards. If we secure it, the Imperial Glory can undergo repairs, resupply ammunition and provisions, and the players will have a much larger area to operate. That makes sense. Tina's servo skull returned and hovered by her cheek, awaiting further orders. Qin Yun leaned forward. Which forge world are you from? Trifall, she answered, a forge world at the edge of the galaxy. Qin Yun's interest piqued. Trifall sat on the outer reaches of the Ultima Segmentum, far from Mars. It had long acted autonomously, cultivating dark technologies and producing equipment for the Imperium without sharing its secrets to Mars's satisfaction. Delegations to Trifall had returned with incomplete blueprints. The Archmagos of Mars had come to despise that silence. Qin Yun was glad Tina came from Trifall, far less likely to be doctrinaire Mars loyalist and more likely to be useful given the player's unconventional needs. Do you understand bioenhancements, bionic implants, and weapon maintenance? He asked. I am a maintenance priest, Tina replied. I maintain machines and manufacture servitors. I am versed in those skills. Good. From now on, you will run the prosthetics shop. Qin Yun's voice was calm and decisive. The God Chosen will use contribution points they earn from missions to buy your wares. You'll also be able to assign them tasks, he added. I'll authorize you to issue secondary missions. Tina looked puzzled. Omnissiah above. Why complicate things? Shouldn't they simply obey orders? They're a little different. Qin Yun's expression tightened. They are the God Chosen of the Omnissiah. Each has their own will. I don't pretend to understand the Emperor's reasons. His wisdom is beyond me. All I can do is guide these chosen and make sure they accomplish the tasks laid out by the Omnissiah. I do not comprehend such a method, Tina said slowly, but I will follow your orders. She was confused, but the evidence in her core and the practicality of the situation convinced her to trust Qin Yun and carry out his commands. 24. Restart the communication system. After going over the details one more time and making sure there would be no mistakes, Qin Yun escorted Priest Tina back to the players. God Chosen, he announced. Thanks to my negotiations, Priest Oz Tina has agreed to provide you with weapon maintenance and bionic enhancements. At the same time, she'll issue various missions. Completing them will earn you contribution points. In a moment, she'll upload a detailed inventory. Once you have enough contribution points, you can purchase the items and augmentations listed. The players immediately erupted in excited chatter. Bionic enhancements are finally being released? I can't wait. I knew hoarding contribution points would pay off. I want to be Atom Smasher from Warhammer 40k, a full cyber psycho. I'm turning my little brother into an adamantium automaton with piston drive. That's Slaanesh corruption, exterminatus request. As expected of the most realistic game, first you have to find an NPC to open a bionics shop. I kept thinking this was real life. Tina watched the jubilation with confusion. They were thrilled to be offered weapon maintenance and cybernetics. They reminded her of greenskins, irrationally sanguine. Still, standing beside Qin Yun, she suppressed her doubts. As a devout servitor, she trusted the Omnissiah's arrangements. Doubt bred betrayal. Betrayal brought pain. She needed only to have faith. When the players' talk died down, Qin Yun spoke again. The Likard space station's communications system is offline. It was sabotaged during the revolt, and we can't contact the surface. We don't know what the situation is down there. What we need to do is reclaim control of Likard, restart its communications, and re-establish contact with the surface. Qin Yun showed Tina how to issue missions to the God Chosen. It was simple. Set the mission difficulty and expected time, then assign an appropriate number of contribution points as incentive. For Tina, a mechanically enhanced priest, it was easy. She issued her first mission to the players. Restart the Likard space station communications system. When the rebellion began, cultists had injected a virus payload into the station's main systems. The virus had paralyzed the station and corrupted the communications array. To restore comms, the virus had to be purged. Tina produced a code override device shaped like a human skull. Plug this into the main console of the communications array. The sacred program inside will run automatically. It will overwrite the corrupted code with blessed code, activate the augury array, and bring the comm system back online. This will take time. The device must be protected at all costs. Since we've retaken Sector Y107H, the traitors are wary. They will send elites to stop you. As soon as you restore the communications and expel the virus payload, I will take control of the area's weapon systems and assist your extraction. Qin Yun nodded. We'll complete the mission. Taking the skull device, Qin Yun led the players straight to the communications station. They cut through cultists and plague zombies en route and inserted the skull into the main console. The program began overwriting the corrupted code. The commotion drew attention. The cultists organized a counterattack, driving plague zombies toward the array to retake it. A fierce battle erupted. "Fire in the hole!" someone shouted. "Smoking bomb!" Lasers and bullets stitched the air. Qin Yun used roar and prayer in quick succession to bolster the players' morale and combat prowess, then raised his bolt gun and fired. A group of charging cultists went down, their forms scattering like broken meat. A golden notification shimmered through the comms HUD. Congratulations, experience gained. Level LV7, LV8. Skill learned, warp sense, perceive the ethereal fluctuations of the warp. Skill learned, aura of reason, forces nearby allies to overcome negative states such as fear, despair, black rage, and red thirst, forcibly restores sanity. I hit level 8 already, a player whooped. Warp sense is a prerequisite for psychic powers. If I can get to level 9, I'll finally unlock psionic abilities. Qin Yun felt a swell of pride. Only a few days since their first login, and he'd already reached level 8. The psychic talents he'd coveted were within reach. The Warhammer 40k version of Gandalf, he joked to himself. Outside the comms room, the cultists rallied under their frenzied leader. Defeat the false Emperor's pawns, brothers. The Great Father watches. Every hero who sacrifices themselves enters his eternal garden, freed from suffering and filled with everlasting joy. Lanos's voice was manic, whipping his followers into a bloodlust. From a makeshift position, Xiaopang manned a multi-barreled heavy lasgun. The barrels spun, las beams lancing the field in a tidal wave. Any cultist who exposed themselves was shred, but cultists had snipers too. A laser screamed past and a charred gouge opened in Xiaopang's head. He reached up, felt the wound, and slumped. He's down. I have to respawn, someone cursed as Xiaopang fell. Without that heavy support, the players' firepower dropped and the cultists surged. For the Emperor! They roared as they closed the gap. Haigui threw himself forward with a melt-a-bomb and detonated it among the charging cultists, sacrificing himself but holding the breach for a moment. Another player shoved Xiaopang's corpse aside and took his place, pouring covering fire into the choke point. They're insane, someone muttered. So reckless. Lanos's face darkened at the explosion. The defenders clearly intended to die rather than yield. Keep charging. Retake the communications room at all costs, he ordered, merciless. Wave after wave of cultists and plague zombies surged, and the number of players dwindled. Another player embraced a melt-a-bomb and went with a thunderous explosion. The pressure mounted. Then the skull device finished its work. A crisp chime sounded at the main console. Praise the Omnissiah! The skull's jaw opened. A prayer-toned program spoke. Code overwrite complete. The communications thinker rebooted. Guide. I will now take over battlefield control. Weapon systems online. It is time to teach these traitors the price of betraying the Imperium. Priest Tina's voice rang in Qin Yun's ear as the station's previously silent autocannons came to life. The guns swept the approach in searing arcs. Cultists fell like wheat beneath the scythe. Charge out and finish them. Qin Yun shouted, leading the surviving players from the comms room. They cut down any cultists and plague zombies still standing. Lanos didn't escape. A bolt from Qin Yun's gun blew the cultist leader's head apart. The communication system hummed with life again, the skull device still muttering a final prayer as the battlefield settled. P.S. Here's a Necron meme. Thanks for your support. 25. Dog planning that knows human nature, East Asia Research Institute cafeteria. Dong Hai had just gotten his food and sat down when Ding Yanfeng leaned over and whispered in his ear. Dong Hai, do you play games? Dong Hai blinked at him. Old Ding, what are you on about? A revolutionary virtual reality game, 100% realistic. Reservations are through the roof, nearly impossible to get, but I have a special invitation. Say you want to play, and I'll book it for you right away. Don't tell me this is a pyramid scheme, Dong Hai said, wary. With Ding Yanfeng's enthusiasm, he assumed it had to be either a pyramid scheme or a cult. A pyramid scheme? Have you read The Three-Body Problem? Ding Yanfeng replied. I have. What does that have to do with pyramid schemes? In the first book, the ETO made a three-body game, Ding Yanfeng said. This one's even more realistic. Dong Hai scowled. So aliens are invading now? No aliens. I'm just asking, do you want to play or not? Ding Yanfeng took out his phone and opened a web page. Just click reserve. You don't even have to fill in any info. Dong Hai eyed the phone. Just click once, do nothing else? Exactly, just one click. Half convinced, but still suspicious, Dong Hai reached out and clicked reserve. A line of text flashed up and then disappeared. Ding Yanfeng grinned. Okay, I filled in an ID for you. I laugh at that cinch wu mao. Now just wait for the game helmet to arrive. Dong Hai felt something was off, but said nothing more. He ate his meal while his mind wandered to the contribution points he'd been saving and what he might buy at the soon-to-open prosthetic shop. That evening, as he was leaving the research building, the front desk called him. He had a package. I haven't ordered anything, Dong Hai muttered, confused. At the desk sat a package with his name. Back at his dorm, he opened it and found a strangely shaped helmet, exquisitely made, like a piece of art. When he ran his hand over the patterns, the metal felt cool and real. Curiosity won. He put the helmet on. At first everything went black, then a golden two-headed eagle filled his view. Binary and runic codes scrolled beneath it. Game loading, please wait. Dong Hai took the helmet off, stunned. A game helmet arrived without him filling any form. How did it get sent here? He stalked over to Ding Yanfeng's dorm. He lived nearby. Ding was at his desk, looking through information. Dong Hai dropped the helmet in front of him. What's going on with this game? Ding Yanfeng examined it and shrugged. Isn't that the helmet? What else do you want? I didn't enter any info. How did it get sent here? Did you sell my data? I didn't. Ding put a hand up. When I got my helmet, I thought my info had been stolen too. It turned out it wasn't. Stop talking. Wait until you're actually in the game. Then you'll understand. His friend's confidence did something to Dong Hai's skepticism. He wanted to see what could have captivated Ding so much. Ding told him to lie down on the sofa, put the helmet back on, and close his eyes. Dong Hai did. Even with his eyes shut, a beam of light pierced the darkness and shone straight into his pupils. He hadn't opened his eyes, but the world had already changed. Imperial glory, praying sanctuary. Holy crap, Dong Hai gasped. He spun to take everything in, his astonishment turning quickly to awe. This was a game world. Old Bird, Ding Yanfeng's in-game handle, sauntered over. Told you. Revolutionary VR, remember? You called it a pyramid scheme. Believe me now? Is it really this realistic? Dong Hai asked. That's just the surface, Old Bird said proudly. Remember when I told you about repairing a reactor? It was inside this game. The system is as complex as the real thing. Old Bird led Dong Hai through the praying sanctuary, the strategic room, the command hall, and finally the reactor compartment. Meanwhile, Blood Pigeon had dragged several classmates who had flown planes into Warhammer OL. He taught them how to pilot Valkyries. The controls felt true to life, and the students were thrilled. With skilled pilots, the Imperial Glory's vehicles finally had proper purpose. At Leicard Space Station, Priest Tina, following Qin Yun's instructions, drew up a detailed list in preparation for the bionic shop's opening. Qin Yun reviewed the prices. They weren't absurd in themselves, just far beyond what most players could afford at this stage. Only Old Bird, Zhang Ge, and Shi Qi Lang, the veteran players, actually had spending power. I need to make the players stronger so they can do missions better, but I can't just hand out contribution points for nothing, Qin Yun muttered. The enhancement surgeries Priest Tina offered would directly boost a player's combat effectiveness, but most players were broke. If Qin Yun freely distributed contribution points, It would be unfair to those who'd earned theirs. Players don't have money, Qin Yun thought. I have money. I can lend it to them. And while I'm at it, I'll set up a credit system, he added. Players with good credit can get discounts. Qin Yun felt suddenly proud of himself. If players lacked funds, lending them money and tying it to credit would both let them buy gear and ensure they worked to earn it back. He explained the idea to Priest Tina and asked her to program a God-chosen credit system. She didn't fully grasp all of Qin Yun's motives, but she implemented it. When Priest Tina's Bionic Shop opened with a holographic announcement, Priest Tina's Bionic Shop is officially open. Grand opening, 15% off for the next 24 hours, limited supply. Players swarmed the shop. To handle the crowd, Priest Tina deployed servo skulls and holographic screens so players could browse on their own. The reaction was immediate and noisy. Players saw the price list and started complaining. A basic bionic eye with long-range targeting, field of view adjustment, and light adaptation costs $200,000. It doesn't even come with blessings, only drops on death. A primary auxiliary core is $1,600,000. It provides memory caching, auxiliary computing, and data offloading. The B-14 Mantis blades, monomolecular neural interface tech, are $850,000. Did the game's designer play too much Mountain Blade 2? Is the game's dev a dog from Tencent? Old Bird, who had painstakingly saved over $100,000 and was the richest among them, was outraged that he couldn't even afford a bionic eye. Seeing the uproar, Priest Tina announced Qin Yun's credit and loan system. This shop offers loans, she said. Credit limits are set based on your credit level. You earn credit through credit-worthy actions like completing missions and repaying loans. Eyes widened. You can borrow money in a game? Someone whispered. Warmaster gave an impressed thumbs up. First time I've seen loans in a game. Old Bird admired the designer's cunning. Loans for expeditions, bravo. I may not respect walls, but I respect this game's designer. The fourth calamity doesn't run away, someone joked. Are you afraid we'll take out loans and bolt? They say the last person who ran with a loan got beat so badly he's been paralyzed for 10,000 years. Another replied, and the herd laughed, equal parts nervous and amused. Then Shichi Lang stepped up. I'm going all in. I'd rather be penniless than miss out. I'll take a loan and get a psionic amplifier. After signing a long agreement, Shichi Lang was led into the operating room by Priest Tina. The surgery was quick, about a dozen minutes, and he emerged with a dozen neural amplification cables sprouting from his scalp, each the thickness of a small finger. Does it hurt? Old Bird asked, gripping his hand. No feeling. They anesthetized me. It only felt like an itch on my scalp, and then it was over, Shichi Lang said. Show us what 900,000 buys. Warmaster leaned in. Shichi Lang reached out and conjured ice crystal-like ethereal shards that danced around him. He looked exactly like a mage, straight out of a fantasy MMO. Everyone drooled. The amplification is serious, Shichi Lang said, delighted. My control is tighter, and my power has increased a lot. Can I take more loans? I feel like I can push this further. His credit wouldn't allow a bigger loan, but after witnessing the results, the players' protests about the heartless designer evaporated. They took loans and bought bionics to boost their combat effectiveness. To ensure players could earn the contribution points needed to repay their debt, Qin Yun broke the operation to take Leichhardt Space Station down into a series of missions. Players could earn points by completing those missions, and in the process get stronger. Chapter 2 will come later. It's still being revised. 26. Limited Time Rescue Mission. Mission. Clear Plague Zombies in A142 area. A group of Nurgle-infected walking corpses are wandering this area. Clear them out, strike. Reward, 15,000 contribution points. Mission: destroy virus canisters in B124 storage area. Cultists have stored Nurgle virus canisters here, intending to transform space station organisms into zombies. Stop them. Type destruction. Reward, 50,000 points. Restart H533A energy hub. This energy hub supplies power to multiple areas and has been paralyzed by traitor sabotage. Restart the hub under the guidance of Priest Tina. Type repair. Reward, 100,000 contribution points. After 3 rounds of mission allocation, 120 players had entered the game. They formed squads, completed tasks, and earned contribution points. With improved skills in firearms and close-quarters combat, and the prosthetic limb enhancements provided by Priest Tina, the player's combat effectiveness far outstripped that of the disorganized cultists and plague zombies. Heavily indebted and eager to earn, the players attacked relentlessly and reclaimed large swaths of the station. Priest Tina even joked that these god-chosen were almost too industrious. Even the servitors looked lazy by comparison. Not everyone went on frontline missions. Qin Yun assigned players with specialized skills to other duties. Old Bird and his team, along with Zhuojian Bao and other repair-savvy players, worked under Priest Tina to fix automatic turrets, data control centers, and electronic matrices. Blood Pigeon, Nai Long, and others practiced piloting Valkyries and other vehicles, preparing for travel to the surface of Atoma planet when the time came. B-10H Cargo Transfer Area. The wide loading hall was littered with fallen plague zombies. Shi Lang flicked his wrist and an ethereal shard shot from his hand, striking a struggling zombie in the head and finishing it instantly. Psychers are just so cool. Ningba Ren, who had mantis blades implanted, said with envy. Shi Lang smiled. Your mantis blades aren't bad either. Up close, cutting zombies with those is like slicing melons. Warmaster kept his weapon trained on the passageways, scanning for stragglers. After the prosthetics, our firepower's gone up a lot. If it had been those mutants on the battleship before, I could have handled them myself. He hadn't taken prosthetics. Instead, he'd undergone physical augmentation. His speed, strength, and endurance had all been boosted. Wan Lao shook his head. That was Guide's amplification skill that made it feel easy. Otherwise, that Chaos Beast would have killed us over and over. Hai Gui cut off the chatter. Enough reminiscing. The B-10H cleanup is done. Take a few photos and upload them to Priest Tina for confirmation. Then we move to the next mission. They uploaded the photos, and the datapad pinged back. Mission confirmed. Contribution points have been issued to the team account. Let's go, Warmaster ordered, and the squad pushed down the corridor system. At an intersection, Hai Gui halted suddenly. No, someone's coming down this way. Are you sure? Warmaster asked, but his tone was already tense. Hai Gui was implanted with perception-type prosthetics and excelled at reconnaissance. Confirmed, he said. Left path, about a dozen. Warmaster changed the battery in his laser gun and gave the team a look. Hold positions. Prepare to ambush. A dozen cultists appeared from the left, 2 of them lugging a heavy metal canister. Hurry up and get this delivered, one barked. Keep an eye out. Loyalists in Y-107H have been hitting us hard lately. They could try to sneak in here. Once we wipe out the False Emperor's pawns in B-14Y, we'll hit Y-107H. None of them will get away. As the cultists passed through the clearing, Warmaster stepped out and opened fire. Move it, he shouted. Ningba Ren, Hai Gui, and Wan Lao joined in. Shi Lang drew from the warp, shaping ice crystal ethereal shards and throwing them. In seconds, the cultists were cut down or badly wounded before they could react. One coughed blood, his lung pierced. Ningba Ren sprang forward, extending his mantis blades and driving them into the cultist's shoulder. The man choked and spat blood. What are you transporting? Ningba Ren demanded. You'll be cursed by the gods, pawns of the false emperor, the cultist snarled through blood. Don't bother, Warmaster said, blasting him dead. You'll get nothing from these lunatics. Any sane person wouldn't join chaos. Hai Gui crouched beside the metal canister the cultists had dropped and examined it. Wan Lao gave it a kick. By Nurgle's usual methods, that's likely a virus canister. No, likely. It is, Shi Lang said with certainty. Ningba Ren kicked the dead cultist's head aside. I heard them mention loyalists in B-14Y. Let's go check it out, Warmaster said, looking to the others. I agree, Ningba Ren said. Me too, Wan Lao added. With consensus, they headed toward B-14Y. They crept into B-13Y and pulled themselves up onto a large pipe, breath held. Below the pipe, the storage areas were swamped with plague zombies. B-13Y and B-15Y, which flanked B-4Y, were packed as well. Each storage area on the station was vast, roughly the size of 15 acres, larger than a football field. To fill one would require tens of thousands of zombies. Including the corridors, at least 100,000 plague zombies were besieging B-4Y. With that many, the 5 of them would be swallowed alive if they acted rashly. From their pipe, they could only peer down into the chaos. The passage into B14Y was a grinding bottleneck of gunfire and occasional explosions. So there really are loyalists in there, but we don't know how many, War Master said, frowning at the mass of bodies. What can we do? Ningba Ren asked. Go on a killing spree. With that many, you'd be cutting until your hands cramp and not finish a thing, Haigui muttered. Something's off. For so many zombies to gather, someone must be directing them. Look, Shi Qilang said, pointing. They followed his finger to a fat man covered in pustules and rotting flesh, surrounded by cultists. A corrupt aura radiated from him. I can sense a vile power, Shi Qilang said. He's a Nurgle blessed. He's controlling the plague zombies. Should we snipe him? War Master made a throat-slitting motion. Shi Qilang shook his head. Nurgle's blesseds have huge health pools. At this distance, we might not kill him, only reveal ourselves and get surrounded. Let's call Guide. Ask for support. Haigui pulled out his datapad, typed a message, and sent it. Qin Yun had just finished clearing the water purification plant of cultists and zombies with his squad when the alert hit his pad. He read the message. Guide, we found besieged Imperial civilians and forces in storage area B14Y, under attack by cultists and plague zombies. Enemy numbers are massive, and we have a suspected Nurgle blessed, requesting support. Qin Yun contacted Tina at once. Under his orders, she issued a timed mission to all players. Datapads across the station flashed the same alert. Timed, rescue mission content, cultists have besieged a group of loyal Imperial citizens in storage area B14Y. Reward, participating players will receive 5,000 contribution points. For each Imperial citizen rescued, participating players will receive 20 to 100 contribution points based on individual contribution. Still shamelessly asking for continued reads. No meme today. Apologies. 27. Support is coming. Look, Guide has issued a mission, calling on all players to come to the rescue. Haigui handed the data slate to his companions. Participating in the rescue earns 5,000 contribution points, and saving an Imperial citizen grants an additional 20 to 100 contribution points. My goodness, Guide is being generous. Shi Qilang did some quick mental math. Between the rescue rewards and the kill bounties, this mission would cost at least 1,000,000 contribution points. War burns money, he muttered. War Master, standing nearby, nodded in agreement. This is only a small rescue. If a large engagement like the Warhammer battles breaks out, it could cost trillions of contribution points at once. Should we break through and take a look? Wan Lao suggested. Try to communicate with the people inside. Shi Qilang shook his head. No, I owe nearly 1,000,000 contribution points for this set of equipment. If I die, that's a huge loss. Let's wait for Guide to bring people, Haigui said, siding with Shi Qilang. His own sensory prosthetics weren't cheap either. At that moment, fierce fighting erupted in the passage linking the B13Y sector to B14Y. A Chimera infantry fighting vehicle thundered through the metal corridor. The Chimera was the Imperial Army's most common transport, durable, sturdy, and easy to maintain. Its turret-mounted laser array swept the path, cutting down plague zombies attempting to swarm forward. Dozens of soldiers followed, laser rifles spitting precise fire, excellent at close-quarters fighting. In short order, they had cleared a path amid the tide of corpses and began setting up crude fortifications, forming a defensive line. Infantry and tank coordination, very well trained, War Master observed. Looks like a professional unit. After the makeshift line was established, civilians began pouring out of B14Y. They're trying to break through, War Master frowned. Damn it, if only we could wait a little longer, our reinforcements will be here soon. They don't know we're going to support them, Haigui said. Now that B13Y and B15Y are sealed off and the plague zombies are swelling, any sane person would try to force a breakthrough. Otherwise, being trapped in B14Y is a death sentence. Nurgle Blessed roared as the false Emperor's minions attempted to drive the desperate breakthrough back, hurting the stumbling plague zombies to encircle the defenders and stop the breakout by sheer numbers. Cultists mixed with the undead, opening fire on Imperial soldiers and hurling incendiary bombs and grenades. Molotov cocktails ripped 2 soldiers into flames. The Chimera's gunner picked off cultists as they surfaced from the corpses. but there were too many enemies hidden in the mounds of bodies. Suddenly, 2 cultists surged forward, carrying satchels of explosives. "Fanatics! Shoot them! Don't let them get close," the soldiers behind cover shouted. Bullets tore into the cultists, but the satchels still sailed onto the defensive line. Boom! The blast shredded several nearby soldiers into pieces. Entrails and organs littered the passage. Plague zombies poured through the gap, overwhelming fleeing civilians and ripping at them. Panic spread. The orderly line disintegrated into chaos. "In the name of the Emperor, Mother, I'm coming." A soldier, pinned and mortally wounded, pulled a grenade's pin and detonated himself amid a dozen plague zombies to buy time. "If it were just the army, breaking through would be easy," Warmaster said, watching the soldiers sacrifice. "But with civilians to protect, they might not make it." Ningbaren turned away, unable to watch. "Damn it, why does this game's designer have to make all NPC storylines like this?" Shichilang felt a clutch in his chest. Warhammer OL's NPCs and plots were unique and immutable. An NPC who died was gone. A missed plotline was missed for good. There was no do-over, no rewind. "We shouldn't only think about leveling," Warmaster said, looking at the others. "Life has made us forget why we started playing, left us only with leveling, gear, and victories. Games should let us live different lives, fulfill dreams Terra can't," Haigui added. "I finally understand why Warhammer OL makes every NPC and event unique. Maybe the game expects us to truly experience another life, not just grind for power," Warmaster continued. "Maybe one day we'll be strong here, really strong, and we'll remember today. We'll remember our cowardice if we do nothing while innocents die." "The choice is ours now," he said quietly. "Rush out and fight for them, or stay here and live with the regret." Warmaster's words stung some of the players. Eyes went red. "You're right, this isn't just about gear," Haigui said. "I choose to fight." "Count me in," Ningbaren added. "Heh, dying just means tens of thousands in debt. What's there to be afraid of? Let's go." Another chimed in. Warmaster turned to Shi Lang. "What about you?" "Your speeches are wasted in a tavern," Shi Lang said, standing. 7 ethereal shards condensed into ice crystals in his hand. "All right, I'll snipe that Nurgle Blessed to draw fire. Then we'll rush in and tell them support is coming. Get them to hold their ground and wait for reinforcements." Warmaster dialed his laser to maximum and took aim at the distant Nurgle Blessed. He closed his eyes for a brief prayer. "Holy Emperor, for your people, protect us." He squeezed the trigger. The laser beam cut the air with a high-pitched whine. The Nurgle Blessed screamed in pain and staggered. The chaotic tide of plague zombies faltered. "For honor, for the Emperor!" Shi Lang shouted, sending the 7 ethereal shards arcing through the air like thrown blades. They sliced through cultists and zombies alike, felling them in swathes. "Charge!" Warmaster roared. "Time for a massacre!" Ningba Ren's mantis blades sprang from his wrists. He leaped from a pipe, cleaving a plague zombie in 2, spinning to bisect another at the waist. The others opened fire. The 5 moved as one, spearheading into the enemy mass. 2 small Hellfire missiles streaked out of the Chimera at the rear and detonated where the squad was headed, blowing apart clusters of plague zombies and clearing a corridor. The squad fought through and linked up with the besieged Imperial forces. Captain Aang, commander of the Atoma 101st Light Infantry Regiment, studied them warily. "Who are you?" Warmaster returned the Aquila salute. "I am the armaments officer of the Imperial Glory warship and a god chosen of the great god Emperor. We're here to tell you reinforcements will arrive soon. Don't force a breakout and risk needless casualties." "Imperial Glory? Support?" Captain Aang's expression was suspicious. "Are you Navy personnel?" "You could say that," Warmaster said. "For now, withdraw. Our people will be here soon." Captain Aang looked at the civilians and soldiers huddled nearby. The plague zombies were increasing. If he ordered a breakout now, perhaps a third of them might survive. "All right," he said at last, "I'll trust you this once." He barked an order to his non-commissioned officer. "Withdraw to B14Y district." Under the Chimera's cover, the unit fell back and established a defensive perimeter within B14Y. Inside the district, the players found many injured civilians and soldiers strewn on the ground. Relief washed over them. If they hadn't arrived, Captain Aang might well have left the wounded behind. It wasn't simple cowardice. Aang hadn't known reinforcements were coming. From his perspective, Likard Space Station had fallen, most Imperial loyalists were dead, and only enemies remained. In isolation, harsh choices had to be made to save as many as possible. Within B-14Y, there were 200 soldiers, 2 chimeras, and over 1,000 civilians. The civilians clustered in small groups, huddled and crying or praying. As Shi Chi Lang and the others passed, people peered up with fearful, hopeful eyes, aware these strangers had forced a way in and might be the sign that more help was coming. "This is too realistic," Ning Ba Ren said low. "The despair in their eyes, too much. I can't take it." "Don't say anything," War Master replied, his mood heavy too. "We'll be saved soon. Reinforcements are coming. Try to cheer them up." Captain Aang kept repeating the reassurance as they moved, trying to bolster morale. "Hold on, Ganfu. You'll be fine. Rescue's coming. Just hang on." A painful voice came from a stretcher. The player squad followed Aang toward a group of soldiers clustered around a young man. His chest had been torn open, blood gushed from the wound. "Captain Aang," the young man rasped, reaching for him. "Private Ganfu." Aang knelt and took the soldier's hand. "You were brave, Ganfu. You've served well. Think of the God Emperor. He will welcome you." The captain forced a gentle smile and continued, "You have fulfilled your duty." The young soldier coughed, a tiny smile forming despite the blood. Then he died. The sight lodged like a stone in the throats of the 5 players. Boom, boom, explosions echoed outside. A soldier came running up, breathless. "Captain, friendly forces are approaching." Aang's face lit with urgent hope as he looked to the players' squad. "Are they your people?" "Yes," War Master answered. "Move out and meet the friendly forces immediately." P.S. Battle Sisters. I'm not convinced. Why wasn't I chosen? For the Corpse Emperor. For honor. Qin Yun roared and swung his sword. The arcing blade cut 3 plague zombies in half at the waist. The bolt gun in his other hand barked twice. Bodies exploded into ragged heaps of flesh. Behind him, 3 heavy cavalry-class servitors that had been assigned to Priest Tina unleashed their own barrage. Massive tracked hulks bristling with oversized, multi-barreled bolt guns and rotating chainswords, they tore through the tide of corpses like living war machines. Lasgun and autogun fire only singed their thick armor. The servitors crushed and shredded the undead beneath their tracks, turning the ground into a churn of blood, rotten flesh, and broken bone. "Charge! Move faster if you want contribution points. Don't let a single one escape. Heavy firepower squad. Keep up. Fire in the hole." The players surged forward, eager and greedy for kills. Participation in the fight guaranteed 5,000 contribution points and rescue rewards, with extra rewards for kills. A single major engagement could net 7,000 or 8,000, and sometimes 20,000 or 30,000, far more profitable than Cyber City or the Old Six battlefield. A wet, low roar announced a new threat. A Nurgle Blessed lumbered into view before Qin Yun, a bloated mass of festering sores and crawling flies, clutching a mucus-slick bone staff. Its voice was a sickening, adhesive rasp. "Corpse Emperor's servant," it croaked. "Return to your master." Qin Yun activated Emperor's Light. Golden radiance flared, making the Nurgle Blessed stumble back with a howl. He sheathed his bolt gun and power sword with a practiced motion and drew the Holy Judgment Blade. Electric arcs danced along the blade as its power field ignited. The longsword came down with brutal force. The Blessed's bone staff snapped, and the power sword tore through rotting flesh and charred it, sending out a foul, burnt stench. Qin Yun pressed the attack, releasing Emperor's Light again. Under the searing golden radiance, the creature's flesh melted, its eyes liquefied into pus, and finally the Holy Judgment Blade pierced its rot-filled chest. The Blessed flared like a torch and was consumed to ash. "Congratulations, you gained experience. Level LV8, LV9. Learned skill, Ethereal Shard. Condense warp energy into ice crystal fragments and fire them. Learned skill, Psychic Inferno. Condense warp power into an explosive blaze. Learned skill, Faith Shield. When attacked by demons or warp damage, a protective shield will manifest. One-handed sword, Proficient. One-handed sword, Mastered. Two-handed sword, Beginner. Two-handed sword, Proficient. Qin Yun barely had time to glance at the notification before 2 Chimera transports and a contingent of Imperial soldiers burst out of B-14Y district. Gunfire erupted. Without the Nurgle Blessed to coordinate them, the plague zombies collapsed into disordered heaps under disciplined fire. With the tide turned, the cultists scattered. Captain Aang, leading several soldiers across the gore-slick ground, came straight to Qin Yun and rendered an Aquila salute. "Thank you for your aid, guide. I am Captain Aang, commander of the Atoma 101st Regiment. I place my unit under your command." "Praise the Corpse Emperor, who guides us," Qin Yun replied, returning the salute and holstering his weapons. "Shall we pursue the traitors? Give the order, and we will carry it out." Qin Yun glanced at the soldiers behind Captain Aang and shook his head. "Your men are exhausted. Withdraw them to Y-107H zone to rest." "Understood." Captain Aang saluted again and began organizing the evacuees toward the safe zone. Qin Yun, however, led the players and the relentless war servitors in pursuit of the fleeing cultists. They swept through the dockyard and reclaimed the port. Lycard Space Station's port district was a ruin of severed limbs and scorched decking. A small cluster of cultists knelt in the muck, hands raised, faces pale with terror. "Please, we were wrong," one pleaded. "Forgive our sins." Qin Yun's eyes hardened. "You weren't ignorant. You knew what you were doing. You knew you were betraying the Corpse Emperor." He raised his bolt gun and aimed at the nearest supplicant. "The Imperium does not forgive traitors. If there's another life, let it teach you the cost." The shot blew the man's head apart. At once, the players behind Qin Yun opened fire on the remaining kneeling cultists. "Check the port for any hidden defenses," Qin Yun ordered. "I don't want the Imperial glory blown to pieces the moment she docks." While the players swept the docks for turrets and ambushes, Qin Yun moved to the port control to call the Imperial glory in. A servitor's skull buzzed to life beside him, carrying Priest Tina's voice. "Guide, ground communications are established. Governor von Valancius requests to speak with you." "The governor wishes to speak to me?" Qin Yun said, then nodded. "Priest Tina, connect him." The skull's projectors flared and a holographic image formed, a man in sumptuous robes, beaming the proper deformation of relief and reverence. He returned the Aquila salute in the projection. "Hail, esteemed guide, mouthpiece of the Corpse Emperor. I have heard of your deeds. Praise the Corpse Emperor for sending deliverance in this crisis," the man said. "We urgently require aid. The outer districts of Tyrian Hive City have fallen. My forces have been pushed back from the lower tiers in the factories. More and more citizens are stricken with the plague. Our medtechs are overwhelmed. Only the prayers of the state church priests ease their suffering briefly. Without reinforcements, Tyrian Hive City cannot hold. The Emperor's light on Atoma planet will fade, and the survivors will only await death." Qin Yun watched the governor's hologram steadily. "I'm sorry, the Imperial glory has encountered unforeseen circumstances and is currently understaffed. I cannot promise substantial assistance at this time." Governor von Valancius' expression shifted to urgent plea. "Priest Tina informed me of your situation, but as a chosen of the Corpse Emperor, you cannot refuse his people so coldly. If you help us now, the Valancius family will swear eternal loyalty to you. P.S. Why does this Corpse Emperor have 4 arms? Chapter 29. Mission. Assist Belisarius Call in rescuing the Primarch. Qin Yun's face was unreadable, but inside he felt a surge of exhilaration. Retaking Atoma planet for the Loyalists, a mission personally assigned by the Emperor, was something he could not ignore. The rewards, however, were paltry: faith points and a pair of epic wings. For someone who wanted to build his own faction, that was barely a start. In the grim darkness of the Warhammer universe, even the mightiest individual ultimately needed a backing force. Even a Primarch required the support of a legion. Qin Yun had no intention of being another open-hearted martyr like Celestine, easily exploited and backstabbed by suspicious inquisitors. He wanted his own power base, to control the narrative. The Valancius family's pledge of loyalty was a promising beginning, a first-generation rogue trader house with an imperial charter. Properly supported, they could become a dynasty. "Very well," Qin Yun said. "For the Emperor, I will assist you to the fullest. Have someone synchronize all battlefield data and intelligence with the space station," he added. "Once I secure the enemies overhead, I'll find a way to support you on the ground." Feng exhaled in relief. "Thank you, esteemed guide. The Valancius family will never break its oath." The comm ended, and the projection winked out. Adoma's intelligence was quickly packaged and uplinked to the station. Qin Yun sent Tina to receive it so he could review the data after finishing his current tasks. If he could secure the Valancius house's backing, it would be a solid foundation. After mulling over faction strategy, Qin Yun tapped the bridge console to contact the Imperial Glory. He ordered Old Bird and the other players to bring the warship in for inspection and repair. There were no pilots or control tower staff, and the players at the helm were inexperienced. Of course, something went wrong. The adamantium prow clipped the docking tower on approach. Fortunately, the ship had slowed almost to a crawl, so the damage was negligible. The impact sent those on the bridge sprawling. Achievement unlocked. Ram the warship into a wall, the system chimed. Wu Mao helped Old Bird up and gave him a thumbs down. Old Bird returned the favor with a middle finger. If you backseat drive again, I'll tie you to the bow and go street racing through the void. Wu Mao tossed his hair and struck a pose. Make sure you tie me handsomely so someone can take a commemorative photo. Old Bird stared at him, speechless. You were so restrained at the research institute. All that repression poured into the game, huh? Have you been corrupted by Slanesh? This is the real me, handsome and compressed, Wu Mao said with a lewd grin. Zzz! The cogitator servitor crackled as new data poured in. The bridge projector woke and outlined Qin Yun's figure. The joking players froze and snapped to attention, saluting. Guide, sir? Are you all right? Qin Yun asked, concerned. Reporting guide, sir. No injuries. Old Bird stepped forward, taking responsibility. It was my command error. If contribution points are deducted, please take them from me alone. You all did very well. For a first operation at this level, it wasn't a mistake. You deserve reward, Qin Yun said instead of rebuke. Several players cheered, chanting, Long live the guide, and vowing no repeat accidents. Once the Imperial Glory docked, Qin Yun found Captain Aang and asked him to select survivors with ship maintenance experience to help the players repair the vessel. Leave it to me, guide, sir, Aang promised. I'll pick a team with proper maintenance background. Thank you, Captain, Qin Yun said. Aang bowed with sincere respect. It is an honor and my duty to serve. Likard's space station, B11J residential sector, had once housed tens of thousands. When the crisis began, most inhabitants had become plague zombies. The cultists had rigged traps and emplaced weapons to slow any loyalist reclamation. After arranging ship repairs, Qin Yun led the players and soldiers of the 101st Regiment in an assault on the sector. For the Emperor, they surged forward, raining fire onto the disease-riddled horde, wiping out the rot-born abominations and cutting down fanatical cultists. The team advanced, leaving a trail of shredded, reeking corpses. Watch my newly learned Frost Nova, Shi Lang yelled, unleashing a skill he had gained with his recent level up. Warp energy flared as dozens of plague zombies had their feet frozen, becoming easy targets for players' fire. Why do psychers get active skills and we don't? This isn't fair. War Master complained sourly as he shot a zombie's head off. His own level up had only granted passive boosts. Fanaticism temporarily increases combat power and reaction speed. Shooting talent, quicker mastery of firearms. Tenacity, greater damage resistance. Will of Stone, strengthened will to resist temptations and interference. No choice. Some people are just lucky. Ning Baren said, swinging his mantis blade and bisecting two plague zombies at the waist. Suddenly, the air chilled. Warp energy gathered and whispers curled around them. Shadows writhed. The players turned to see Guide Sir concentrating psychic power. Shi Lang, who understood warp currents better than most, froze in astonishment. This amount of psychic force was beyond his control. Psychic Inferno, Qin Yun intoned. He had spent all his accumulated faith points at the shrine, raising his psychic-related skills to test them in battle. Warp energy coalesced into towering pillars of flame that erupted from the ground, tossing the tide of corpses into the air and setting them ablaze. Flame columns shot skyward. In just over 10 seconds, the mass of undead was reduced to ash. Oh my god. Shi Lang's eyes went wide. They were all psychers here, and yet Guide Sir's psychic power dwarfed theirs. This isn't scientific. Is psychic power supposed to be scientific? Ningba muttered, rubbing his nose. Shi Lang fell silent, chastened. He had thought that hard training and leveling up would let him someday punch one-eyed ogrins and kick blue-skinned big birds. Seeing Qin Yun's display made him feel insignificantly small. He suspected Ahriman could crush him with a single finger. The players and Imperial troops, including Captain Aang, were equally stunned. Was this the power of the Emperor's living saint? A single gesture annihilated enemies before them. There were no mighty foes in the residential area, only cultists and plague zombies, and they were slaughtered utterly. While clearing the sector, a player discovered more than 100 survivors hidden in a warehouse. Across other reclaimed areas, more survivors were found. Qin Yun selected the strongest among them, issued weapons, and trained them into soldiers. With this influx of manpower, the speed of reclaiming the station increased dramatically. Within days, many sectors once again flew the Aquila. After killing a Nurgle-blessed cultist who had been cultivating plague forms at a water purification plant, Qin Yun leveled up. Congratulations, you have gained experience. Level LV9, LV10. Comprehended skill. Psychic touch, can touch minds to glean information or distort perception. Comprehended skill, soothe machine spirit, can calm out-of-control machine spirits, restoring their equilibrium. Upon leveling, some hidden options unlocked. Detected, target meets conditions for promotion to Astartes. Gene seed implantation can be exchanged using faith points. Hint, if gene seed exchange is not completed with faith points, this enhancement will be lost upon death. Detected, time-limited mission conditions met. Time-limited missions now available for selection. Time-limited mission, assist Belisarius Call in traveling to. Time-limited mission, assist the Blood Angels chapter in resisting the Leviathan fleet. Thank you all for your support. Please consider giving monthly votes and continued readership. Do I need to reach level 10 before I can implant the gene seed? Qin Yun stared at the prompt, thinking. A player at level 10 had a physique far beyond an ordinary human. In Holy Terra, they would be a once-in-a-million specimen. But in the grim darkness of the Warhammer universe, a level 10 body barely met the bare requirements for promotion to an Astartes. He still needed to collect more faith points to exchange for a gene seed. After checking the promotion requirements for becoming an Astartes, Qin Yun pulled up the time-limited missions. Time-limited mission, assist Belisarius Call in traveling to Macragge. Cadia Fortress has fallen, the end times have arrived, and humanity is plunged into its greatest crisis. Yet a glimmer of hope remains. After 10 millennia of work, Archmagos Belisarius Call has created a mysterious armor capable of resurrecting a Primarch. Abaddon has learned of this and sent his best lieutenants to stop the resurrection. Phase 1. Assist Belisarius Call in escaping Cadia, mission expired. Phase 2. Assist Belisarius Call in evading Abaddon's pursuers and traveling to Macragge. In progress, can be accepted. Time-limited mission. Assist the Blood Angels chapter in resisting the Leviathan fleet. The Hive Mind covets the Blood Angels' unique gene sequence and has dispatched the Leviathan fleet to destroy the Blood Angels' homeworld to seize it. Phase 1. Assist Chapter Master Dante in defending the Pluto system. Mission expired. Phase 2. Assist the fleet in delaying the Terranid fleet in the Void. Mission expired. Phase 3. Assist the Blood Angels and numerous successor chapters in resisting the Tyranids on Baal. In progress, can be accepted. Friendly reminder, the mission location is inside a warp anomaly. Time flow in this area differs from normal space. Consider carefully. Belisarius Call is heading to Macragge, Qin Yun muttered. Guilliman hasn't been resurrected yet. The warp twisted time differently across star sectors. After the Great Rift opened, the galaxy's chronology grew more chaotic still. Battles that lasted months in one sector might seem like decades to the rest of the Imperium. From the mission descriptions, Qin Yun finally pieced the timeline together. Events like the Battle of Lion Gate, the Indomitus Crusade, the Plague War, none of those had happened yet. Guilliman's non-resurrection meant the Imperium had not consolidated under his rule. With my current strength, even if I rushed over, I wouldn't help much, he decided. Better to strengthen myself first, then join the Battle of Macragge and try to gain the Primarch's trust. Guilliman was regent of the Imperium, the one Primarch who had awakened and remained loyal. His sway over men and material was unrivaled. Winning his support would make many problems disappear. Qin Yun had already died once and had felt the warp's horror firsthand. Without the Emperor's protection, the future was bleak. With the rift open, the gods of chaos could strike directly. If the Imperium fell, prophecy said chaos would consume the galaxy. The other factions offered little hope. The Eldar were waning, the Necron were inscrutable and fragmented, Orcs only sought to whack. The Tau were laughably unprepared, and the Tyranids were simply an existential threat the galaxy could only hope to avoid being eaten by. Qin Yun resolved that, for his own survival and for humanity's, it was safest to hitch his fate to the Imperium. If all else failed, securing Guilliman's favor in the Imperium's resources might at least buy an escape, thrusters on Holy Terra and a Plan B. He smiled grimly at the idea, a Warhammer 40K version of the Wandering Earth. The fight to retake Leicard's space station raged on. Most players were grinding for faith points and contribution points to level up. A few, however, avoided frontline combat and turned their hands to other pursuits. Among them was Dora, the Lord of Myriad Machines, whose in-game profession in Holy Terra was researching intelligent algorithms and robotics. At first, Dora followed the others to fight zombies and cultists, but as he worked, he thought of something else. Warhammer OL was a fully realistic simulation where you could repair reactors and pilot warships. Real-world knowledge and professional skills mattered here, so why not build things he enjoyed inside the game? Dora gathered a few players and founded the Dora Workshop. Their first goal was to produce low-cost exoskeletons. Priest Tina sold a few exoskeleton sets, but they were prohibitively expensive. An industrial exoskeleton cost around 500,000 contribution points. Most players, even after body enhancements and prosthetics, were flat broke. The combat boost an exoskeleton provided, though, was obvious. Dora saw a market and a chance to both profit and create something real inside the simulation. The Adeptus Mechanicus' obsession with STCs and their tendency to call any unlicensed device heretical didn't bother players much. The threat of punitive fleets was a thing of the lore for now. The Dora Workshop scavenged spare parts from unguarded warehouses and idle factories and built their first model, the Tomorrow I-Type exoskeleton, nicknamed after designs in a movie Dora admired. Because parts came from abandoned stock and unused machinery, the material cost was almost zero. They copied and adapted components, fitted industrial servos and control systems, and fielded a rugged, cheap exoskeleton. It could carry 500 kilograms, was driven by 24 servo motors with a muscle-sensing interface and millisecond response times, had a 24-hour battery life under normal load, and could be mounted with 2 heavy machine guns, a proper heavy-fire platform at a fraction of the official price. The War Master and his squad were preparing for a mission when Dora approached them. "Hey, brothers, want some gear?" "What gear?" the War Master asked, suspicious. "Exoskeleton armor?" Dora said. "You're privately reselling equipment?" The War Master's eyes widened. "We didn't resell. We made it ourselves," Dora corrected, ushering them into a back room. A few other players rose quickly to give them space. In the center of the room sat an exoskeleton. Dora rattled off the specs with pride. 500 kilo carry capacity, 24 servos, muscle sensing drive, millisecond response, a full day's battery, and 2 heavy autocannons. It's a mobile heavy weapons platform. "Impressive," the War Master said. "How much?" 50,000 contribution points a set, Dora said. The War Master's expression hardened. "No way. That's if you're stealing and reselling. If you made them, show me your workmanship and price them properly." They haggled. Dora dropped the price to 20,000, then countered when he saw their reluctance. The War Master pushed back. Voices rose, joking and bartering, until they settled on a deal. 5 sets for 120,000 contribution points total. It was a loss leader for Dora, but he wanted the sale and the reputation. The War Master's men donned the exoskeletons and went on the mission. They were not as invulnerable as proper Space Marine power armor, but the impact was immediate. Shoulder-mounted autocannons and the load-bearing capacity turned them into walking heavy weapons. The squad cut through swarms of enemies where ordinary players would have been bogged down. Word spread fast. The Dora Workshop gained a reputation for decent quality and low price, and a steady queue of buyers formed. Even some Imperial soldiers watched with longing. Qin Yun had anticipated this. If the fourth calamity wasn't going to pull some audacious moves, what was the point? He was relieved the exoskeletons were coming from Dora and not a conservative Forge World priest. If Priest Tina had been from Mars, the Mechanicus might have called them heresy and crushed the makers. Instead, Tina's origin on a peripheral Forge World made Qin Yun confident she would be more tolerant. He planned to support the Dora workshop, but rather than hand out rewards, Qin Yun decided interest-free loans were better. Too many contribution points thrown at players would sap their incentive to innovate. Loans would let Dora hire craftsmen, refine designs, and scale up production. If the industrial surge came from the players, the Imperium would benefit. And Qin Yun's gamble would help turn a few more ordinary humans into the kind of muscle the galaxy now sorely needed. 31. How dare you desecrate the sacred machinery? He stepped into the Dora workshop factory. The roar and heat hit him like a wave. Crude mechanical arms revealed hydraulic pipes and control cables as they welded along a moving conveyor and sprayed anti-rust paint over exoskeleton shells. At the end of the line, rows of gleaming new exoskeleton suits waited. Several players had transformed the place into an industrial assembly line, working around the clock to ramp up production. The exoskeletons were not only sold to players, but also supplied to Imperial forces. Demand was enormous. When Qin Yun walked in, the players guarding the line panicked and snapped to attention. "Guide, sir," they called. "Who is in charge here?" Qin Yun asked. "Dora, Grey Wolf, the big bad wolf, playing with Little Red Riding Hood," answered weakly. "He's in the studio, researching new exoskeleton models. Take me to him." Qin Yun's voice left no room for refusal. Grey Wolf hurried him to the studio. The other players exchanged worried looks. "Do you think we'll be punished? Banned? We might have violated the Adeptus Mechanicus prohibitions. I was hoping to make some extra cash. Now I've messed up big time." Dora ran out when he heard the guide had arrived. He wore a gray work uniform, face smudged with grease. "You're busy," Qin Yun observed. Dora shook his head. "No, guide, sir. I'm just making what I like." "Making what you like?" Qin Yun raised his voice. Dora flinched. "Then keep making them. Make them bigger and stronger. Turn this into a first-rate military industry. Your innovations on exoskeleton armor are excellent. To commend you, I'm awarding each founder of Dora Workshop 10,000 contribution points," Qin Yun continued. "I'll also extend an interest-free contribution loan of 10 million points so the workshop can expand." Dora's eyes went wide in disbelief. He'd expected a reprimand, maybe a raid. Instead, he received praise and funding. "Thank you, guide, sir. We'll work harder and expand the workshop." "Good," Qin Yun nodded. "You said you're developing a new exoskeleton. Show me the progress." Dora led him through the studio and laid out the past few days' work. This is the newly developed Tomorrow 2 exoskeleton. The 2 type builds on the original I type with composite curved armor plates that link modularly to improve overall defense. It uses the latest Thinker combat system and comes with a data helmet that displays a HUD so the wearer can gauge the battlefield. Load capacity is up to 800 kilograms. The motion assist system has optimized behavioral pattern sensing and servo motor dynamic response. The shoulder-mounted laser heavy machine gun syncs with the reticle on the player's HUD. Pull the trigger, and the targeted enemy can be shredded. "Very good," Qin Yun said, pleased. "What about production costs?" "All the raw materials came from the space station warehouse, so we had no out-of-pocket cost, pure profit," Dora admitted, a little embarrassed. Qin Yun pressed on. "If we had a full industrial setup and current tech productivity, manufacturing cost for the Tomorrow, I would be around 35,000, and the Tomorrow 2 about 55,000. Scale up, and the prices can come down further." Those numbers satisfied Qin Yun. Such low costs were exactly what he needed, an army on the horizon. "How many can you produce per day now?" "At the moment, we can only crank out Tomorrow 1 models, 15 sets per day." "Speed up production. We're heading into ground combat soon. Exoskeletons will cut our casualties. I authorize you to recruit NPCs and give you secondary authority to issue quests to other players, but you must supply the quest rewards yourself. I have 2 requirements: increase production and develop more new equipment." Dora straightened, morale high. "I will complete the mission." Qin Yun nodded and left. Soon after, an announcement flashed across the Imperial glory and the Lycard space station feeds. "Dora, The Lord of Myriad Machines and the Big Bad Wolf, playing with Little Red Riding Hood, had received the Industrial Creativity Award, each rewarded with 10,000 contribution points, and Dora Workshop was granted an interest-free loan of 10 million contribution points for expansion. Players erupted in the chat. Holy crap, Dora got commended! Industrialists and farmers, rejoice. Openly stealing the Adeptus Mechanicus rice bowl. I always thought this game would eventually turn into something like Paradox Interactive. No need to guess. It's 100%. We're all potential war criminals. I want to open a factory too. Back to my old trade. What does this guy do on Holy Terra? Research intelligent adult dolls. You Slaanesh follower, Inquisition wants to talk. Shishi Lang stared at the announcement, thinking it through. Maybe he'd been wrong before. Hidden gameplay could be discovered by players, not just triggered by NPCs. He wanted to use his unique skills too, to push capitalism into the Warhammer universe, to make even the warp entities feel the terror of profit. One day, the great raider Abaddon might have to submit a proposal and take out a loan for his raids. Wouldn't that be something? On the group chat in Holy Terra, Qian Donglai posted routine updates. The Imperial Glory had docked for repairs, much of Leichhardt Station had been reclaimed, and ground combat would begin soon. Players who like combat are in luck. The whole planet is your battlefield. Dora Workshop got commendation and an interest-free loan. This wave benefits industrial and agricultural players. Ringworlds and Colossi aren't just fantasies anymore. He unmuted the group. Messages exploded. Why treat me like this? Old 13, what's wrong? I didn't even get a reservation slot. There'll be 200 game slots tomorrow, 50 special invites, rest regular players, so calm down. 150 slots and only 300 members. Everyone should get one. Prepare to welcome the great regent. Back at Leichhardt Station, Qin Yun was checking the chat on a control console when more than 20 join notifications popped up for the Warhammer corporate slave group. He was about to tap the interface when a voice behind him said, "Guide, we are ready to depart at any time." He turned. Blood Pigeon stood at attention, saluting. Qin Yun closed the projection and nodded. Then let's go to Planet Atoma. With most of Leichhardt Station reclaimed, Dora Workshop expanding, and the Imperial Glory under repair, Qin Yun planned to inspect the surface battle himself. He assigned a few players and a unit to act as his representatives, tasked with liaising with the Valancius family. At the boarding area, Xiao Pang, Warmaster, Bald Donkey, and other combat-hardened players were already waiting, along with more than a dozen Imperial soldiers. Everyone wore Tomorrow Eye or Tomorrow 2 exoskeletons, looking formidable. Depart. Qin Yun waved and his group boarded in formation. 3 Valkyries screamed out of the station and dove into Atoma's atmosphere. The outer district of Tyrian Hive City had already fallen. As they entered low altitude, they came under heavy fire. Dense lasers, missiles, and bolter rounds tried to bring the Valkyries down. 5 rebel fighters scrambled to intercept. A fierce dogfight erupted. The player piloting their Valkyrie, inexperienced, repeatedly put them in tight spots, but the Valkyrie's performance outclassed the rebel craft. Alarms howled in the cockpit as Blood Pigeon strained at the controls to dodge incoming fire and evade the fighters. "Missiles incoming, locked on," yelled Nylong from the co-pilot seat. "An enemy craft is closing fast from the front. Their auger has a lock. Wolves in front, tigers behind. We have to take a chance." Blood Pigeon gunned the engines and charged. When he closed in, he yanked the stick hard. The machine spirit screamed as the Valkyrie pitched up at a 90-degree angle. The pursuing missiles couldn't correct and slammed into one of the rebel fighters, detonating it into flaming wreckage. Using the altitude, Blood Pigeon locked on to another fighter and launched wing-mounted missiles. A blinding explosion turned that fighter into a fireball. "Double kill! You've got ace potential," Nylong yelled, thrilled. "It's nothing," Blood Pigeon replied, modest but proud. As they neared the inner district of Tyrian Hive City, anti-aircraft batteries on the high walls opened up and shot down another rebel fighter. The last 2 chose to withdraw. Qin Yun's Valkyrie touched down on the city landing pad. Governor von Valancius of Atoma, Bishop Heidelake of the State Church, Luo Sage of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and a crowd of nobles waited. As Qin Yun and his group disembarked, they rushed forward to greet him. "Welcome, guide. Vaughn said, performing the Aquila salute. The others followed. Qin Yun looked at the governor. His face had been sallow and streaked with the signs of plague. He then consecutively invoked 3 skills: Blessing, Purification, and Emperor's Light. May the light of the God Emperor shine upon you. Gold radiance spilled out. The plague's marks on Vaughn's skin faded, and his color returned instantly. Everyone present gasped. Is that a miracle? Someone whispered. It is the power of the God Emperor, another breathed. He's a living saint. The God Emperor has sent his messenger. Bishop Heidelake shouted to the crowd. Our suffering is over. I must pour cold water on you, Kaluo Sage of the Adeptus Mechanicus said sternly, stepping forward and pointing his cog-toothed staff at the players and soldiers accompanying Qin Yun. This man might be a heretic trying to deceive you. Those exoskeletons are blasphemies against the Omnissiah. Such heretics should be executed immediately. 32. This planet is a thief. The air on the tarmac turned suddenly heavy. Heresy was the gravest of crimes here. No one dared utter a careless word. Sage Kaluo continued. My database contains no record of this mechanical exoskeleton. It is not a creation of the Omnissiah. Qin Yun stepped forward. It's an exoskeleton suit, refined by a god chosen to reduce battlefield casualties. This is blasphemy against the Omnissiah, someone spat. You damned heretic, you lie to deceive everyone, another cried. Sage Kaluo pointed at Qin Yun and raised his voice. Watch your tongue, heretic. Your Excellency the Guide, Bishop Heidelake interjected. He is an envoy of the God Emperor. An envoy of the Omnissiah would not tamper with the Omnissiah's works. He is a liar. Sage Kaluo's tone was cold. This is a grave accusation and a grave sin. Qin Yun swept his gaze across the gathered dignitaries. If you do not require my assistance, I will take my leave. Your Excellency, please excuse Sage Kaluo's rudeness. We need your help, Feng said, stepping in to apologize and then turning to the sage with a hard edge. Sage, go and rest. Let your deputy finish the battlefield report. This is not a request. This is an order from the Valancius family. Do not make me repeat myself. Sage Kaluo's crimson eyes drilled into Feng, but he could not defy the Valancius family's authority here. Governor, I will obey. He stepped aside, but made no concession of belief. This is blasphemy against the Omnissiah. I will not let this go. I will report this to Mars. Feng's face hardened. A flash of anger crossed his eyes. Kaluo's threat cost him face and planted a seed of future trouble for the family. Even with a rogue traitor charter from the Emperor, there was little they could do against Mars. But the crisis was immediate. Without the guide's help, the Valancius family might not survive. It would be better if the troublesome sage were silenced completely. Surrounded by dignitaries like Feng and Bishop Heidelake, Qin Yun followed them into the Hive City. Magnificent, Ningba Ren breathed, staring up at towering spires and colossal statues hundreds of meters tall. The others were equally awed. Seeing the grandeur of a hive at close range impressed them all. They were led to a great hall under a domed roof where a huge machine stood. A massive holographic projection floated above a metallic platform at the center, showing a full view of Tyrian Hive City and the disposition of loyalist forces. Outside the hive were dense red blots. Enemy forces far outnumbered the defenders. As Qin Yun studied the projection, the image suddenly flickered and warped. The metal control panel crackled. The machine spirit is displeased and requires appeasement, a mechanical priest cried, alarmed. He picked up a censer and moved forward to perform the ritual. Before he could reach it, Sage Kaluo's harsh voice cut through the hall. Assisting a sinner who blasphemes the Omnissiah makes you complicit in that sin. The mechanical priest froze and retreated. The others bowed their heads. None dared oppose the sage's authority. Sage Kaluo, can we not resolve this now and settle theological matters later? Feng urged. Either punish that heretic or have your people fix the projector. Sage Kaluo pointed at Qin Yun, his mechanical tone pitiless. He wanted to make it clear, without his sanction they had no right to the Omnissiah's machines. Qin Yun glanced at him, then laid his hand on the wailing control panel and activated the skill, Soothe Machine Spirit. Golden light flowed from his palm. The machine spirit stilled, the flickering projection stabilized and reloaded into a detailed battlefield map. The hall fell silent, stunned. The display confirmed beyond doubt Qin Yun's identity as a living saint. Noble saint. Bishop Heidelake rushed forward, dropping to his knees and kissing Qin Yun's feet. This is the Omnissiah's power. One by one, the others performed the Aquila salute, devout and trembling. Qin Yun looked at the cluster of mechanical priests standing behind Sage Keluo. Sage Keluo has abandoned the Omnissiah. Are you sure you wish to continue following him? Unease spread across their faces. One by one, they stepped around the sage, saluting Qin Yun and pleading for mercy and forgiveness. Being a living saint is very useful, Bald Donkey muttered, watching the scene. Don't say that, War Master hissed. Xiaopang cut them off before their idle jokes could continue. No one in the hall paid any heed to Sage Keluo's protests now. In the human empire, religious zeal was absolute. The emperor's status was unmatched, and his envoys carried that authority. To defy an envoy was to defy the emperor and invite the Inquisition and state church down upon you. Even if one survived the present crisis, later testifying to the Inquisition would likely be a plea for a quick, painless death. Sage Keluo watched for a long moment, then turned on his heels and strode away, furious. Qin Yun watched him go, brows knitting. A zealot of Mars could be a constant problem. It might be best to make him disappear entirely. For now, with the sage gone, Qin Yun turned back to the projector. Now, let's analyze the situation. The rebels are aided by dark gods and command countless plague zombies, he said, pointing at the red masses. Our numbers are too few. Holding the central districts of Tyrian Hive City is already difficult. The Atoma planet originally had 4 hive cities. 3.5 had fallen. Countless Imperial citizens had been converted into plague zombies. The rebels' tide of corpses tactic alone would exhaust and overwhelm the Imperial defenders. On the front line, we are at an absolute disadvantage, Qin Yun continued. But we have a Moon-class battleship. I will position it over the rebels to bombard their main concentrations. Simultaneously, I'll deploy elite strike teams for special operations to seize key positions and decapitate leadership targets. While the commanders hashed out plans, Ningba Ren idly surveyed the crowd. The hive's architecture was breathtaking, but the meeting bored him. His eyes drifted to a bald soldier nearby. That guy's forehead is unique, like a heavenly mark. Could he be from old Beijing? He joked inwardly. He stopped laughing. It wasn't just one soldier. Over a third of the soldiers present were bald and bore the same strange mark on their foreheads. One could be chalked up to genetics or coincidence, but dozens, hundreds. That was a problem. I think something's wrong, Ningba Ren leaned over to War Master. What's wrong? War Master asked, puzzled. Look at the third man from the left, his forehead. So, he's bald with a few lines. One isn't scary, but what if 100 of them all look like this? War Master's grin disappeared. He scanned the hall and realized Bald Donkey was right. This planet, this place, seemed to be full of G's. 33. Lobster conscription is really fast. The situation on Atoma planet was catastrophic. Only the inner ring of Tyrian Hive City still held out. Even that fragile hold seemed unlikely to last. The city was ravaged by plague. Crowds fell ill. Cultists lurked in the shadows, instigating riots among hungry civilians who were running out of medicine. Qin Yun and several senior officers argued until dinner and then paused to rest. Bald Donkey and War Master took the chance to relax after the meal and quietly briefed Qin Yun about genestealers in Tyrian Hive City. So the only reason Tyrian Hive City has managed to hold so far is that the genestealers still have the will to fight? Qin Yun asked. They stood on the balcony overlooking the hive. Wind tousled Qin Yun's hair as he watched Xenos guarding the city gates. The absurdity of alien hordes dying for a planet nearly made him want to laugh. It would be no joke if this happened on Holy Terra. Should we wipe them out right away? War Master said, practically vibrating with excitement as he hefted his gun. I can't wait to go on a killing spree. You brute, shut up, Bald Donkey scoffed. We're too few. If we start a massacre, we'll be the ones who get wiped out. I suggest we play along for now, Bald Donkey continued. When we get back to the Imperial glory, we issue an extermination order and wipe the genestealers and traitors clean. Xiaopang nodded in agreement. Works for me. I've seen the Imperial glory's armory. There's a whirlwind missile in there. Qin Yun rubbed his temples. These players were ruthless in ways he hadn't seen before, worthy of the nickname Fourth Catastrophe. He asked the practical question, what about the civilians? Even with the Genestealers causing trouble, many ordinary people still lived in Tyrian Hive City. A single whirlwind missile would kill countless innocents. We need to be careful. For now, the Genestealers' interests line up with ours. Both want to hold the inner city, Qin Yun said. Don't act rashly. First, be cautious and determine the scale of their presence. Also, I want someone stationed here permanently to handle communications and unexpected developments. Who will stay? Qin Yun asked. Xiao Pang and Bald Donkey exchanged a look, then stepped back without a word. War Master was left standing in the front. Qin Yun pointed at him. Then you'll stay. Wah! War Master blinked in surprise and then realized he'd been volunteered. You too shameless. I'm needed to keep slaying the Emperor's enemies. I can't remain here, Xiao Pang said with a theatrical salute. I'll introduce you to a girlfriend if you switch with me, Bald Donkey offered, fawning. War Master shook his head with a smug smile. I don't want either of you. Qin Yun put a hand on the dejected War Master's shoulder. All right, from now on, you're the Imperial Glory's diplomatic envoy. You'll handle communications with the surface and supervise the ground troops. War Master's eyes lit up. Is that an official post? By naval ranks, it's second only to the captain, Qin Yun said. Xiao Pang and Bald Donkey's smiles froze. Why hadn't he offered them the post? War Master rubbed his hands, thrilled. Bald Donkey gets credit for discovering the Genestealers, 50,000 contribution points. Everyone else gets 10,000. Don't mention this to others, Qin Yun added. I'll brief the other god chosen about the pros and cons. After a short pause, they held another military meeting to review the battlefield and the defensive deployments. Qin Yun confirmed War Master's assignment, then led a team under cover of night to board Valkyrie fighters and return to Lycard Space Station. He brought more than a dozen seasoned naval officers and machine priests to help him run the Imperial Glory and to tutor the players. At Lycard Space Station, Qin Yun gathered the players and told them about the Genestealer infiltration in Tyrian Hive City. The news set them off in all kinds of directions. Genestealers? Are they making us take part in the Great Evolution already? One player asked. The new compendium of Materia Medica says Gs are warm, fishy, unblock collaterals, relieve pain, attack toxins, disperse masses, and are gene aphrodisiacs, another chimed in. Aphrodisiacs? I haven't read that, don't lie. As the saying goes, like cures like. Look at their reproductive capacity, definitely aphrodisiacs. Catch a few, stew them, soak some in wine. You'll be a groom every night. Those are Genestealers, not some cun street performers you can marinate for a love potion. Are you insulting the head of my Kun Fist? Unacceptable. The first-generation Grandmaster of the Southern Kun Fist is here. Enlighten me. Eat my bolter and then ask for enlightenment. Times have changed. What kind of first-gen master doesn't use a bolter? The players' banter spun wildly away from the gravity of the situation. Qin Yun rubbed his forehead, exasperated, but his voice alone quieted them. Enough. Listen up. His authority hushed the group. I'm telling you this so you understand the risks in Tyrian Hive City. Be extra cautious when encountering allies. For now, the city still needs the Genestealers to help defend the inner hive. Once we retake Atoma Planet and rescue the civilians, then we eradicate them. After the briefing, Qin Yun found a Thinker console and logged into the game's chat group to open new recruitment slots. The group exploded, 999 plus unread messages, and a second Warhammer group with 1,982 members. Qin Yun frowned. How had so many people joined while he was offline? He opened the chat and found chaos, explicit images, off-topic spam, a Slanesh-level mess. He clicked open a private chat with a user named One Night Output Slanesh 10 times. What happened? How did over 1,000 people join? It's Longxia, the user replied. He posted a grotesque video and it's gone viral. Now hundreds of thousands have seen it and they're all joining. Qin Yun tracked it down. One of the players he'd brought into the game had been a video blogger. The blogger had edited footage into a clip about Warhammer OL, posted it on Bilibili and elsewhere, and it had blown up. Suddenly, Qin Yun understood why the group numbers had surged. Excellent, he thought. He needed a recruiter, and Longxia had just recruited for him without asking. The original Warhammer group, corporate slave captured by the Emperor, had only a few hundred members before. Most active members had already been recruited. Qin Yun had worried how he'd keep filling the ranks while juggling everything else. Now, unexpectedly, recruitment was taken care of. He scanned the chaotic chat and appointed a handful of administrators: a bowl of lobster soup, blue two-headed bird, loyalty, fat face who kisses Nurgle madly, the most courageous brother of Warhammer and Second Empire War Master. Without admins, the group would spiral further out of control. Group owner, corporate slave captured by the Emperor, has enabled group mute, read the system message. A new batch of reservation slots, 50, will be released promptly at 7 p.m., Qin Yun announced. Additionally, 50 special invitation slots are reserved for those with professional skills. Private message the admins with proof. After he spoke, he turned group mute off. Compliments and flattery flooded in. "Wow, was that the group owner? He doesn't say much, but he's really handsome," one user wrote. "Flattery. A person of such noble character as the group owner certainly won't bother with you," another parried. The messages swelled back to 999 plus. Active users were booming. Qin Yun smiled. 200 recruitment slots were now secured. 34. I'll build you 2 Emperor-class Titans. This time, I have to get what I want. Not to prove anything, just to show everyone I can do it. In a private booth at an internet cafe on Holy Terra, Luo Baude stared at the screen with iron resolve. He'd rented the highest spec machine in the place, paid for the fastest connection, and launched every accelerator and helper program he could find, all for one purpose: to grab a reservation slot. 1857, 1858. He held his breath, fingers tight on the mouse, eyes glued to the group chat where messages flew by in a blur. Everyone in the group was waiting for the allocation to open. Then a notification popped up. Group owner, corporate slave captured by the Emperor, has enabled group mute. Is it coming? His heart hammered. At that moment, one of the accelerator programs disconnected, a warning window flickered, and then the screen went blue. The machine began to reboot. The machine's spirit was displeased. Luo Baude froze for a heartbeat, then gave a howl of despair. No! Heads turned. Patrons in the cafe glanced over, pity on their faces. He might have been wounded more times by women than anyone cared to count, but this cry sounded like a man betrayed by fate itself. Luo Baude watched his computer restart, feeling all his strength ebb away. Macragge needed its regent. Why was he cursed with such bad luck? By the time he fumbled out his phone and opened the reservation link the group owner had posted, it was too late. The slot counter read 150. He had missed the 100% realistic game again. Group owner, corporate slave captured by the Emperor, has disabled group mute. Guilliman is the only son. No. Why is this happening to me? The people of Macragge need me. The Empire needs me. Why now? I don't want to be a stinking can. Old 13, what's wrong with you this time? Guilliman is the only son. I didn't get a slot. My life has lost all color. +1, +086. The chat filled with wails and mockery from members who'd been too slow. Guanbao Mengjiao typed breezily, "Huh? It was easy to get. How did you all miss it? Didn't try hard enough?" Guilliman is the only son posted an image. Bolter shooting heretic. Desert Lone Smoke. Getting a slot. Anyone with hands can do it. Erlong Gang leader. Damo, are you speaking human? Messages scrolled on. Qin Yun watched for a little while, then closed the chat and stood up. He went down to the docks to check the repair status of the Imperial Glory. Tyrian Hive City's situation was dire. Several rounds of orbital bombardment would be needed to hammer the traitors into submission. Qin Yun wanted them to know the price of betrayal, and he was impatient to finally experience orbital fire for himself. He'd only done it in games before. Now he would command the real thing. The port was a hive of activity. The Moon-class battleship Imperial Glory loomed like a towering city. Its armored hull, a cliff of metal, antennas and turrets a skyline of machinery, 100-meter sculptures and giant cannons dwarfing the onlookers. Heavy industrial servitors clanged and tumbled, mechanical arms hauling structural plates. Survivors worked under the guidance of several tech priests, while experienced naval officers drilled players and newly recruited sailors in basic shipboard operations, navigation, and system management. People saluted as Qin Yun passed. He nodded in return. He approached the chief of maintenance, Jackdo Priest. The priest set aside his data slate, snapped a salute, and greeted him with formal reverence. "Welcome, honored emissary of the Omnissiah." How are things? Qin Yun asked. Progress is good, Jackdaw Priest replied. We estimate the Imperial Glory will be ready to sail in 3 days. You and your team have done excellent work. Qin Yun nodded, sincere. It is the wisdom of the Omnissiah. We merely obey, Jackdaw Priest said humbly. Qin Yun looked up at the ship again. It's time to show those traitors what happens to those who betray the Emperor. Meanwhile, on the ground, the players were preparing for infantry combat. After Dora Workshop received its interest-free loan, the factory had expanded rapidly. Multiple assembly lines churned out Tomorrow I and Tomorrow II exoskeleton suits. Qin Yun had purchased most of the output with contribution points to arm local forces. Can they be customized? Xiao Pang asked after a walkthrough, eyes bright with ideas. Dora frowned. That's a little difficult. Price negotiable. First, tell me what you can do. I want some ATST walkers, like in Star Wars, but fitted with multi-barreled bolters and laser cannons and a main cannon on the back. Sure, Dora said after a stunned pause, then grinned. How about 2 Emperor-class Titans as well? That would look mighty. And arm them with Hellfire missiles and giant cannons, something that could flatten a mountain in one shot. You can build that? Are you serious or joking? Xiao Pang gaped. I can build Gundams, Death Stars, phase drives, dropships, even 2-dimensional foils, Dora said casually. Brother, are you kidding? You started the joke, Dora shot back, rubbing his temple. Do you really think I'm some magical cat from an anime that makes anything you imagine? Xiao Pang's ambitions had been wild. An ATST, an all-terrain scout transport, stood over 20 meters tall. This small factory could barely manage exosuits, let alone towering mechs. He swallowed and adjusted his tone. Okay, fine. Maybe that was extreme. Can we at least boost firepower, a shoulder cannon, or a chainsword? Consider our Tomorrow Heavy Armor 3 type, Dora suggested, pulling out a design draft. Unlike the earlier models, the 3 type traded mobility for firepower and protection. Slower, larger, about 5 meters tall, but with terrifying offensive capability and thick armor. It's possible, but endurance will suffer. It'll be more dependent on logistics. Put everything else aside. Make firepower and defense the priority. We'll handle logistics later. Xiao Pang's eyes gleamed. I'll talk to Blood Pigeon about airdropping batteries and ammo. Dora nodded. Tell me exactly what to add, and I'll see if it's feasible. Over the next 2 days, Dora and his team modified 5 heavy-duty Tomorrow 3 exoskeleton suits for Xiao Pang. They stripped mobility and endurance to make room for monstrous guns and reinforced plating. To improve survivability, Dora installed a deflection shield system, an electromagnetic matrix capable of diverting kinetic rounds and energy beams. On the battlefield, these suits would hit hard and stand against punishment long enough to devastate enemy positions. The trade-off was endurance. They would be short-lived in prolonged engagements, a few seconds of brutal dominance but fragile without resupply. Dora tested each suit thoroughly, confirmed they worked, and notified Xiao Pang to pick them up. 35. From today on, call me E-Devil. I haven't read much, so I can't say anything eloquent. I can only give you a big thumbs up and shout 666 twice. Dora, you're so fucking awesome, so fucking handsome. Xiao Pang gave 2 thumbs up as he stared at the heavy Tomorrow Mark III exoskeleton armor before him. The barrage of compliments made Dora's mouth curl. He was practically floating. The power armor stood 5 meters tall. Critical points were protected by thick plates. It used limb-driven sensors and a neural interface for control. It was armed with a massive chain axe and a multi-barreled laser, plus a wrist-mounted chainsword that was a genuine battlefield killer. Primitive as it was, it had the blueprint of a mech. With a few more iterations, it would become one for sure. Dora Workshop had a promising future. The battery life is a bit poor, Dora warned. Always keep an eye on the power. Don't wait until it dies to swap it out. No problem. I already talked to Blood Pigeon. Once the war starts, they'll prioritize us. Airdropping ammo and power cells, Xiao Pang said. Dora nodded. I tested its performance. There aren't any major issues, but control tweaks will need battlefield feedback. After the war, bring me the data disk. Xiao Pang made an okay sign. Don't worry. Even if I don't make it back, the disk will be sent to you. Dora opened the armor plates to expose the cockpit and said, Get in and try it. Xiao Pang climbed into the driver's seat and linked up to the control system. Priest Tina had installed his neural interface earlier, and now it paid off. He pressed the activation button, and the exoskeleton came to life. Streams of data flowed into the thinker system. Ammo, battery, and sensor readouts filled Xiaopeng's HUD. Piloting a mech, every boy's dream, he said. Now my dreams come true. Praise the Emperor, praise the Omnissiah. Xiaopeng shouted, giddy. He walked the suit a few paces, then threw a punch with enough force to tear a man apart. He engaged the wrist chainsword, and the spinning teeth screamed through the air. This is awesome. I can't wait to go on a rampage, he laughed. This thing will cut through enemy bodies like butter, Dora said, standing back to avoid an accidental swing. Glad you're happy. Remember to pay the balance. Don't worry. When I log off, I'll transfer the money to your account. The customization hadn't been cheap. Xiaopeng had paid part with credits and arranged the rest in Holy Terra currency. Everyone pick one and get in, Xiaopeng told his teammates, pointing to the remaining 4 heavy Tomorrow Mark IIIs. After a short training run, they all suited up and walked out of Dora Workshop toward the Imperial glory. Compared to an Imperial Knight, the Tomorrow Mark III was crude. Exposed hydraulics and batteries gave it a rough, wild look. Still, the giant suit drew attention from passing players. Holy crap, that's so cool. Damn, I want one. So big, so fierce. Love it. Envy, jealousy, hatred. Xiaopeng swaggered past the crowd, piloting the Mark III like a conqueror. Priest Tina, monitoring the space station systems, watched on a screen. The crude design was almost sacrilegious, an insult to the Omnissiah's sacred designs. If it had been anyone else, she would have ordered the heavy cavalry servitors and tech guard to seize them. But these were God-chosen, chosen by the Omnissiah himself. To punish the God-chosen was, in her view, tantamount to defying the Omnissiah. Why are God-chosen allowed to desecrate the Omnissiah's creations like this? The thought surfaced for the first time in Priest Tina's mind. Would the Omnissiah truly be angered if someone modified STC constructs? Or were the rules enforced by the adepts on Mars merely their own inventions? Maybe the Omnissiah didn't mind, which would mean the God-chosen could freely improve on his works. The idea unsettled her and intrigued her. Perhaps she could be like them, using her own insight to refine the machines the Omnissiah left behind. In the Imperial Glory's praying sanctuary, Qin Yun knelt before the Emperor's statue and opened his personal panel to review his progress. He was level 10, with physical stats comparable to a minor superhuman. Buff skills: Frenzy, Blessing, Purification, Roar, Prayer, Rational Aura, Shield of Faith, Soothe Machine Spirit, Emperor's Light. Passive skills: Melee Combat, Mastery, One-Handed Sword, Mastery, Two-Handed's Proficient, Throwing, Proficient, Warp Sense, Warp Siphon. Active skills: Psychic Flame Burst, Ethereal Shard, Mind Touch. Equipment: Arcane Link Power Armor, Departamento Munitorum One-Handed Power Sword, Lock Spearhead Pattern Bolter, and the Holy Judgment Blade awarded by the Emperor. After checking his stats, Qin Yun closed the panel and prayed for Gene Seed. He wanted to be promoted to Astartes. He was about to fight on the surface of Atoma and needed greater strength to turn the tide against the Loyalists. He'd spent all his faith points upgrading his psychic abilities, but players gave him a portion of the faith points they earned from kills, and they had accumulated rapidly. He now had enough for promotion. I hope I don't get Gene Seed from a traitor Primarch, he muttered. If he ended up descended from the World Eaters or Thousand Sons, he'd have to call those rebels father. The thought made his skin crawl. As he prayed, a beam of light descended. The environment around him warped and shifted. When it settled, Qin Yun was standing in a magnificent city. Buildings of diverse styles towered around him, and a dark star rimmed in gold floated in the sky. The Emperor's sanctuary, he whispered. He remembered Shishi Lang's post, after death and resurrection. Players passed through a great city, suspected to be the Emperor's sanctuary, the City of Dust. Heavy footsteps sounded behind him. Qin Yun turned and saw a golden-armored warrior approach. The man's face was stern and noble. His voice carried authority. You have completed your task admirably, child, the warrior intoned. Who are you? Qin Yun asked. I have had many names, each with its story. Some call me the King in Yellow. The King in Yellow, the first commander of the Custodes, one of the Imperial Triumvirate, Valdor? Qin Yun's eyes widened. How are you here? You seem to know me, but I am not free to speak plain truths. Valdor's tone was grave. My duty is to guide you to receive a gift long prepared. Gift? Qin Yun frowned. Follow me. Valdor beckoned. They walked through empty streets to a vast plaza where 20 soaring pillars rose to the sky. Dark gold light streamed down from the star above and connected to the tops of the pillars. Each pillar's surface bore a different emblem. A sword and wings on one, a smooth, unmarked column on another, the imperial aquila on a third, a metal helmet on the fourth. Qin Yun realized at once that the symbols were the emblems of the Astartes legions from the Great Crusade. The 20 pillars represented the 20 legions. Do I choose one? Qin Yun asked. Valdor shook his head. No, keep moving. Beyond the pillars a grand platform rose. On it sat a golden throne, and above the throne floated a bright orb of light. Go, receive your gift, Valdor said, pointing. You're not going to trick me into sitting on the throne, are you? Qin Yun asked warily. You are not worthy to replace my lord, Valdor replied evenly. Although true, the bluntness stung. Hurry, do not linger. Others will be drawn here if you tarry, Valdor warned. Qin Yun approached and touched the orb. At once countless voices exploded into his head, old and young, rich and poor, kings and beggars. It was as if a single voice contained 1,000 lifetimes. Vast, dark truths and knowledge poured into him and flowed out. He felt needed and reshaped by a tremendous force. The process seemed to last forever, and yet no time at all. When he came back to himself, he was kneeling before the statue in the praying sanctuary again. The city and Valdor had vanished. The holographic interface showed only a few minutes had passed. Qin Yun stood and looked at his body. He had been 175 centimeters before. Now he was nearly 3.5 meters tall, an actual small giant. His muscles were thick and well-developed. Raw power thrummed through him. He took a deep breath and felt strength surge through every fiber. Promotion to Astartes took how long? A few minutes? He sounded bewildered. Did I ascend to a demon instead? He thought of the surgical process that should take a year, the Astartes transformation, and how he'd had it in minutes. Only a devilish shortcut could explain it. At that moment, 2 flashes of light signaled other logins. Shi Lang and Ningba Ren came online. They opened their eyes to see Qin Yun towering there, bulging muscles and immense presence, like some mythic god. Did the guide promote to Astartes? One of them said. You're stupid. Astartes aren't that tall. That's clearly a Primarch, another blurted. My goodness, I was offline a day, and the guide turned into an E-class demon, someone else exclaimed. P.S. Here's a Valdor. Brothers, please keep supporting by reading through. The read-throughs are crucial during the new book period. Whether there will be future recommendations depends entirely on read-throughs. When new chapters are released, I will update a lot, at least 3 chapters a day, ensuring over 10,000 words daily. Chapter 36, the 4th batch of cattle and horses goes live. Shi Lang and Ningba Ren stood frozen, mouths open. They had never imagined the guide, an NPC, could be promoted to a Primarch tier E-class Great Daemon. Qin Yun ignored the 2 of them and turned to leave. His old gear no longer fit. He was down to a set of linen clothes. He had to find Priest Tina and have a new set of power armor forged. The 2 watched him go in stunned silence. Have you noticed the guide keeps getting stronger? Shi Lang said at last. When we first logged in, he only had an auto pistol, some grunt armor, and a trench shovel. After that, he upgraded to power armor, a power sword, and a bolter, and now he's a Primarch-level Great Daemon, Ningba Ren muttered, scratching his head. Feels like one of those nurturing games. A nurturing game for a living saint, Shi Lang added. The more we help, the more powerful the guide becomes. Then we grind harder, Ningba Ren said decisively. If the guide can become a living saint, we'll ride the coattails. Qin Yun heard them clearly, even as he walked away. The promotion had sharpened his senses. The more he thought about what they'd said, the stranger it felt. It was as if the players were actively raising him. He found Priest Tina in Leicard Space Station's factory district. Under the influence of the players, she'd already been bending Adeptus Mechanicus doctrine, modifying servitors, hooking them into the thinker system, and getting automated production lines running. Her altered factory churned out war material and rations in huge quantities. Lord Guide, she said with reverence when she looked up and saw Qin Yun's 3.5-meter frame. Clearly the machine spirits had smiled on him again. I will forge your power armor at once. Don't pray for perfection. I just need a transitional set so I can go into the field, Qin Yun said. He knew the Mechanicus liked to pray and calibrate for hours over a single component. Priest Tina nodded briskly. Understood. A simplified power armor will be ready within 3 days. Qin Yun's promotion made his old gear obsolete. The Lock Spearhead Bolter, the Arcanus Alliance power armor, and the Administratum one-handed power sword had to be retired. His two-handed greatsword, the Holy Judgment Blade, was converted for one-handed use. The 3 retired items were valuable, especially the bolter from Captain Hanneman, which carried a special bonus against enemies of the Imperium. In any other game, those would be attribute-boosted legendary items. He left the 3 pieces in Tina's Weapons and Augmentics workshop and sent a message to every player. Highest bidder takes the limited edition items. The announcement caused an immediate uproar, especially after news of his ascension to a Primarch tier demon spread. In the Warhammer setting, such weapons would become holy relics with warp bonuses. Buying them now was an investment. I want to use my limited equipment draw. Old Bird, who had repaired and restarted the station reactor earlier, had 1 limited draw token. He'd been holding it, waiting for something rare. Seeing Qin Yun's retired gear, he didn't hesitate and spent the token. He drew Hanneman's bolter. Zhang Ji, who'd been hoarding contribution points, outbid everyone for the power sword. Power swords were rare. Only a few Forge Worlds still mastered them. Even a chainsword with a monomolecular blade was a luxury for most players, so the price for a true power sword skyrocketed. The last piece, the simplified power armor, was snapped up by Dora, a workshop owner who had been doing good business lately and had the funds to crush the competition. Those 3 players left gloating, while everyone else seethed: envy, jealousy, hatred. Those items were destined to become relics. Mass-produced gear simply couldn't compare. Sigh. Why does what I most want to protect appear just when I'm most powerless? Shi Lang moaned, vowing to grind to the bone from now on. If I hadn't spent everything on exoskeleton armor, one of those would have been mine. Xiaopeng looked equally bereft. Limited items were once in a lifetime. Miss them and you missed them forever, and they came with unique bonuses no other equipment could match. Qin Yun ignored the squabble. After the auction, he turned his attention to welcoming the Emperor's newest recruits. Outside the praying sanctuary, the station teemed with activity. The batch of players who had just logged in reacted the same way previous groups had, rubbing their eyes, overwhelmed by the vivid, immersive world before them. It's virtual reality? Holy. It's incredible. So realistic. Those servitors are creepy. Maybe the Emperor himself is running this game. Why do we start as mortals and not as Starties? I want to go on a rampage. This universe is about to feel Damo's terror. Who wants to form a squad? One person vie me 50, and I'll cover you all later. The crowd chattered on until Qin Yun, standing in his role as the guide with a Mechanicus priest at his side and a handful of soldiers in Tomorrow 2 exoskeletons, walked forward. Quiet, he said. The newcomers fell silent. The guide had the power to mute. They suddenly looked at him with the earnest, naive faces of new recruits. Qin Yun recited the standard welcome. Welcome to Warhammer OL, where the Emperor's praise is the only currency. He delivered a few theatrical lines. The great raider has breached. The galaxy is in peril. And then had his soldiers shepherd the new players outside to brief them on the situation and take them to the training grounds. Most of the enemies on Leicard Space Station and the Imperial Glory had been cleared. There were few targets left for live practice, and the ground war would resume soon. Before throwing the newcomers into the meat grinder, they needed to know how to replace a laser gun battery and disengage the safety mechanism. When the transitional power armor and a bolter priest Tina had rushed into production were ready, and the Imperial Glory finished its final checks and material loading, Qin Yun planned to lift the ship above Tyrian Hive City and give the rebels a taste of orbital bombardment. Before he could launch, the War Master, serving as Qin Yun's surface envoy, sent a confidential message. Lord Guide, I have discovered a significant secret about the Valanxius family, the War Master wrote. They were once the premier rogue trader house. Their decline stems from an ancestral exploratory expedition that involved dozens of great houses, the Navy, and the Administratum. The expedition went into the Coronis Expanse and then lost contact. Only the Valanxius progenitor returned. He warned against approaching the Coronis Expanse and later died mysteriously. Because of that incident, the Valanxius family was marginalized and declined. I've heard that the ancestor brought back an object believed linked to the Necron. He demanded the object be buried with him and ordered his descendants never to open the tomb. Qin Yun frowned. The Valanxius family had secrets deep enough to possibly touch the Necron, nothing to ignore. Continue to observe and try to uncover the details, he replied. You have served greatly. We will settle your due when you return. With that settled, Qin Yun ordered the Imperial Glory to sail. The rebels on Tyrion were about to receive a reminder from orbit. P.S. Give me a Star God shard. Still asking for continued readership. Chapter 37. A Holy Orbital Bombardment. The Imperial Glory slid out of the grand harbor of Leicard Space Station. Azure plasma flared from the battleship's aft thrusters as the massive hull adjusted its position in low orbit. Qin Yun sat on the captain's steel throne and looked out over the bridge. Holographic projections hovered on either side of him. Computational servitors embedded in the platform and bulkhead ticked and whirred. Estimated to enter designated orbital coordinates in 13 minutes, called Wumo from the power supervisor's station. With 2 PhDs, he learned fast. Though he had little combat experience, he had spent the voyage shadowing Old Bird, studying the operations of this Moon-class battleship. Now he carried the heavy responsibility of overseeing power distribution. Ground forces have sent surface target coordinates, Old Bird's voice replied. The projection before Qin Yun refreshed, displaying the outline of Tyrene Hive City, enemy-held sectors marked in red. Order all macro cannon batteries to prepare, Qin Yun said, trying to sound like the captains he'd watched in so many videos. Charge the Lance Array and lock on surface coordinates A01, 404251.67N, 7421.50W. The ship's teams moved at his command. On the artillery deck, officers bellowed orders as crews adjusted macro cannon parameters. Mechanical priests monitored reactor outputs, metering energy to the lance arrays with priestly precision. Nearby servitors chattered and intoned, "Praise the Omnissiah." Plus locking coordinates A01, 4251.67N, 7021.50W. Calculating bombardment trajectory, awaiting subprogram feedback. The computational servitor by the throne repeated each status update like a ritual. A crimson death lasso icon unfurled on the holographic map, showing the bombardment envelope. Macro cannons loaded. Lance array fully charged. Green status icons lit across the display. Qin Yun felt an odd thrill, his first time seeing an orbital strike through to execution, and a private thought crossed his mind, a day worth remembering. Then he gave the transmission order. Broadcast to all units, prepare. After orbital bombardment, commence airborne operations. Bring those traitors to the Emperor. The orders went out and were answered in many voices over many channels. Now execute the orbital bombardment procedure. Unleash the God Emperor's wrath. Let sky and earth burn. We will soon reclaim this world and present it to our great Father. We will turn this world into a proper garden and spread the Father's mercy so that all may find salvation. The corpse emperor's filthy kingdom will fall and become nourishment for the garden. On the ground among the ruins, a chaos priest addressed the devout. A cultist with a chaotic sigil carved into his brow muttered, "I heard they had help from someone called Guide." "No matter who aids them, they will fall," the priest intoned, pity in his voice. "They worship the corpse emperor and refuse the true understanding of the universe. The truth is absolute. None can stop it." "But I heard they have a Moon-class battleship," another cultist said, anxious. "And they recaptured Leicard Space Station," someone else added. The priest smiled and pointed to the sky to calm them. "So what if they have a battleship? Father's divine protection shields us." The cultists turned their heads and craned their necks upward. Thick clouds dimmed the sun, casting the world in gray, and for a moment an uneasy hush fell over the ruin-strewn field. Then a sliver of the clouds blazed with light. "What is that?" a cultist gasped. The light coalesced and a column like a tower of pure brilliance snapped down from orbit. It struck the cultist's artillery emplacement dead center. Ammunition stacks detonated in a single, terrible instant. Flames roared. Successive explosions chewed the ground into cratered ruin. Flesh and bone and earth were shredded and hurled skyward before falling back like rain. Whistling airbursts followed. Bright mushroom clouds mushroomed up one after another. Shockwaves surged outward like tidal walls, flattening everything in their path. Screams were cut short as the Chaos Priest watched the inferno roll toward him and whispered, "Father." The flames swallowed him. His soul was torn apart amid a hallucinatory garden of decay. On the bridge of the Imperial Glory, the servitor's final confirmations chimed, and the bombardment telemetry logged green across all channels. Atop Tyrene Hive City's command spire, Governor Feng, Bishop Heidelake, and other dignitaries watched the devastation spread through the outer districts and offered praise to the Emperor. The rebels, stripped of void shield protection, had been turned into nothing before the battleship's macro cannons. "Blasphemous deceivers of the Omnissiah," intoned Kei Luo, a sage of the Adeptus Mechanicus, his manner cold and mechanical. Feng glanced at him, then at his subordinate, who nodded minutely. Everything was in readiness. Feng felt a stirring of reluctance. He did not relish ordering such ruthless measures at a time like this. But Kei Luo had been relentless and uncompromising. If the heretic they'd been hunting were allowed to live, he would bring greater dangers later. To spare him would be to invite disaster. Feng resolved that Kei Luo's demand would be satisfied. He would be granted a proper, if final, fulfillment of his duty. On the lower deck of the Imperial Glory, the atmosphere was all bustle and sharp efficiency. New recruits fresh from basic training clustered together as industrial servitors dispensed weapons and exoskeleton components, on loan. Every item was recorded. Nothing was free. Equipment was issued against a ledger of contribution points, to be repaid through battlefield kills and completed objectives. The idea that soldiers had to incur debt to fight shocked Priest Tina, Ainge, and others. Yet no one complained. Loyalty had its price here, and loyalty earned rank. Serving the Emperor in gratitude was a conviction as much as it was an economy. "Finally a combat mission," muttered Damo, turning a laser rifle over in his hands. "I'm tired of routine work, moving corpses, sweeping corridors every day." "Loyalty lets us advance," Guanbao replied with a grin. "No loyalty, no contribution points, and no gear." Qi Tingzhang nearby nodded and adjusted his shoulder plates. Then Qin Yun's voice rolled through the loudspeakers embedded in the bulkheads. "Orbital bombardment complete. Prepare for airborne insertion." "For the Emperor, for glory." Xiao Pang's voice blared through his exoskeleton's external speaker. "For the Omnissiah," others added, and the slogans tumbled out in mismatched fervor. "For the Horde, for Noxus, for the great treasure." The chants were a strange pastiche, but the anger and zeal behind them were real. Engines roared as Valkyries and troop transports taxied to the lowered flight deck. Blood Pigeon fired his Valkyrie's engine. Azure plasma sprayed from its thrusters as it sprinted off the ramp and toward Tyrene. The transport bay disgorged aircraft and fighters, a streaking spear of Imperial might descending to the ravaged world. On the ground, Class, Rebel Commander, dragged himself from beneath a collapsed beam and stared at the blackened, cratered wards with hollow eyes. "Gather! The Corpse Emperor's minions will counterattack," he shouted, but his voice was swallowed by the thunder of approaching aircraft. Machine gun sweeps stitched across the wreckage as Valkyries strafed. Survivors who had crawled free were cut down where they stood. After the suppression runs, the transports touched down with a hiss of vented gas. Hydraulic ramps lowered, and men in heavy exoskeletons poured out, met by the sharp, metallic sound of servos and the crack of bolters as they cleared the ruins. "Praise the Omnissiah," Xiao Pang bellowed, stepping into the ash smoke and moving with the methodical brutality of a man in power armor. War horns and shouted commands rolled across the ruined district as Imperial troopers swept through the charred streets, hunting every last heretic and plague spawn. Fear, despair, those are human emotions. They do not exist for players. The threat of death meant nothing to them. Gunfire did not make them flinch. Faced with roaring artillery and blinking death, they did not shrink away. They surged forward, hungry for experience, victory, and loot. Players were a natural catastrophe for their enemies. The moment the battle began, they cheered and attacked with terrifying ferocity. Ainge, newly landed, watched in disbelief. The god chosen looked like green-skinned brats wearing human flesh, tearing through the enemy with reckless joy. The orbital bombardment had already broken the cultists and plague zombies in the outer city. Now the players finished what Spacefire had begun. Under the players' fearless assault, the enemy collapsed, scattered, and fled. There was no organized resistance left. Veteran players in powered exoskeletons led the charge. Their shoulder-mounted Gatling guns spun, sweeping away anyone who exposed themselves. Behind them, newer players moved in to finish off the survivors. This game is amazing. Damo, laser rifle in hand, kept firing into a trench. Die, Corpse Emperor's cultists. A cultist suddenly burst from cover, eyes wild, lunging with a curved blade. Damo sidestepped. The attacker stumbled past. Damo slammed the butt of his rifle into the man's back, sending him forward, then pulled the trigger and ended him cleanly. Damo, you ever been in the militia? Guanbao asked, impressed. No, Damo answered casually. I just practice a lot. Team up with me, Guanbao suggested. The old players have too big a lead. Without a team, it's hard to catch up. Damo shrugged. Sure, you help me get stronger, then I'll help you. Win-win. Guanbao blinked. Don't let that go to your head. Come on, when we log off, come to the island, my treat. Food, drinks, entertainment. Guanbao grinned, and Damo's only reply was a reluctant silence. On the other side of the battlefield, a group of rebel soldiers cowered in a half-collapsed ruin. The charred wall exploded inward. A 5-meter-tall suit of exoskeleton armor loomed in the gap. The rebels froze. Ha! Traitors to the God Emperor, die! Xiao Pang's voice came from inside the armor. A circular saw on one mechanical arm whirred and swept through the trench. Flesh and blood sprayed. The lucky survivors collapsed and fled in terror. The multi-barrel laser cannon on the other arm spun up and spat concentrated light. Those trying to escape were cut down, bodies blackened where the beams struck. Praise the Omnissiah, Xiao Pang muttered as he picked new targets. The slaughter was efficiency, experience, contribution points, faith value. In a dugout behind the lines, Class stared at the reports and could not hide his disbelief. An hour ago, they had the upper hand. Endless plague zombies, well-armed cultists. All they needed was to complete the ritual, spread the plague into the inner city, and the planet would belong to Father. Now the tide had turned. What happened? Class demanded. It's the guide, his deputy answered, voice shaking. Rumors say he's the Emperor's messenger. He's got a Moon-class battleship and a retinue of fearless followers. Damn corpse worshippers. Class slammed a fist against the table. We must withdraw and regroup. The deputy nodded. Order all units we can reach to pull back. Before he could transmit, an excited voice rang out from above. Hey, brothers, look, a big one. A cluster of glowing crystals streaked through the air. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The men next to Class didn't even scream before their heads detonated. Shi Si Lang, Ningba Ren, Wan Lao, and Hai Gui dropped down into the trench in exoskeleton suits, weapons trained on the survivors. Faced with cold muzzle flashes, Class and the remaining rebels sank to their knees. This one looks pretty high-ranking, Shi Chi Lang observed, eyeing Class. Worth a lot. He's probably a major, Ningba Ren added, stroking his chin. The War Master is going to be furious if he misses out on the prize, Hai Gui chuckled. As the Imperial Glory's airborne troops kept advancing, the city's loyalist defenders counterattacked. Artillery boomed. Heavy tanks rumbled over rubble and fired into the remaining rebel strongholds, smashing cult symbols into dust. Charge! Make them pay in blood, barked an Imperial officer. In the name of the Golden Throne, for honor, advance! The rebels shattered and fled beyond the hive cities. Plague zombies that had wandered into the fighting were swept aside. Within days, the Imperial double-headed Aquila fluttered again over the outer city's streets. The defeated rebels, their morale broken, abandoned armor and weapons and streamed away. For the stunned refugees, the news was a balm. People flooded the streets to praise the God Emperor, the Guide, the God Chosen, and the Imperial soldiers. Hope, fragile but real, had returned. Qin Yun, the Guide, gave orders to reposition the fleet to fresh orbital coordinates. He had no intention of leaving the routed rebels a chance to regroup. A new round of bombardment would finish the job. Shortly after the battle, the War Master, acting as a diplomatic envoy, sent Qin Yun a dispatch. Lord Guide, Thanks to the status of being a god chosen and our victory in the outer city, the locals were willing to share hidden histories. They let me search through their libraries freely. I found records about an ancestor of the Valancius family. What I think they recovered is almost certainly a tan shard. The exploration fleet that was annihilated in the Coronis Expanse was attacked by a Necron force that had come to reclaim that tan shard. A battle broke out. The exploration fleet paid dearly but managed to take the shard back. At present, the shard is most likely sealed inside the ancestral tomb of the Valancius family. Qin Yun's eyes widened. A Citan, an ancient godlike being from the earliest wars, a fragment of cosmic power. Even shattered, a Catan shard held terrible, incomprehensible potency. That an ancestor of Valancius had stolen and hidden one in their tomb was the stuff of myth. As he absorbed the news, a golden curtain of light rippled into existence before him. Quest: obtain the Catan shard of Atoma planet. Khitan are ancient life forms from the Holy Terra universe, possessing wisdom and power beyond imagining. If harnessed properly, their power and knowledge may grant unexpected aid. Find the Citan shard hidden on Atoma planet and present it at the Emperor's shrine. Reward: a Citan seed with a blank past and infinite growth potential. 39. Battle settlement: a star god seed with no past memories and infinite growth potential. When Qin Yun saw the mission reward, he could barely contain his excitement. He had to get it. He had to. A star god, the most powerful non-psyker entity in the Holy Terra universe, was the stuff of legends. The Necron technology was so fearsome precisely because of the star god's legacy. If he could secure the assistance of a star god, countless problems in the Warhammer universe would evaporate. Continue to follow up on this matter, Qin Yun told the War Master after replying to the message. Secretly investigate every lead related to the Star God fragment. Do not act rashly. Wait for the opportune moment. But Tyrian Hive City was messy. Outwardly, rebels backed by Nurgle cultists threatened order. Inwardly, Genis-stealers hid in the shadows. Qin Yun could not rush in and risk everything. Those problems had to be cleared first. He ordered the Imperial Glory to shift its orbit and prepared another round of orbital bombardment to finish the rebels. Inside Tyrian Hive City's inner tiers, Sage K. Luo of the Adeptus Mechanicus hunched over the laboratory's thinker system, editing the message he planned to send. He vowed to make whoever dared to fake the Omnissiah's messenger pay. Suddenly, he felt unwell. Blood flowed from his nose and mouth, and his legs wobbled. Flesh and machinery alike failed. Prosthetics and organs losing synchronized control, machinery groaning as if corroding from within. Plus, rust virus attack detected. Alarm klaxons blared. The rust virus was a specialized killer developed against Mechanicus priests. It corroded flesh and ruined sacred machinery. Kiluo staggered, panic rising. "Help me," he rasped, but the servitors and Mechanicus brethren outside the lab did not respond. "Help me." "Don't bother," a voice said. "Your death today is a kindness to many, including yourself." "At least you will die a hero, not a shameful traitor," another voice added. The planetary governor Feng stepped in through the doorway, flanked by two genetically altered bodyguards. Kiluo fixed him with a stare. "You did this, didn't you?" Feng did not deny it. He smiled faintly. "Yes." "You poisoned a sage," Kiluo gasped. "The Adeptus Mechanicus will not forgive this." Feng kept his distance. "As long as they don't know, it's fine. Besides, do you think killing you was my idea alone?" "What do you mean?" Kiluo managed. Feng's smile widened. "You publicly questioned that adult and colluded with other Mechanicus priests to embarrass them. Those priests regretted it. They realized they had offended the Omnissiah's messenger, someone who soothes machine spirits. If you returned before him, you would be a constant reminder of their error, so you must die. That was their wish as much as mine." At the lab doorway, a track chassis servitor-augmented mechanical priest rolled in. Kiluo, desperately grasping for hope, cried out, "Father Casca, the Valancius family has rebelled." Father Casca glanced at Kiluo and then away. "Governor, all recordings and servitor logs have been altered. No one will discover today's events." "Thank you," Feng said. Father Casca intoned, "Serving the Omnissiah is our supreme glory." "No," Kiluo choked, but the words died in his throat. Father Casca and Feng stepped aside and watched the rust virus consume him. Flesh melted, steel oxidized, and within minutes Kiluo's body lay ruined. his death resembling some malignant Nurgle corruption more than a surgical purge. Afterward, Feng blamed routed rebels and spies for the assassination. To consolidate control, another priest, Father Scars, was promoted to sage and made head of the Adeptus Mechanicus in Tyrian Hive City. People mourned the sacrificed sage for a few days, but the city soon turned its attention elsewhere, and Kaelua was forgotten. On the barren plains outside the Hive cities, the fleeing rebels collapsed, exhausted. With Commander Class missing, Yuba, corrupt and scarred, took command by default. He glared back at the spires of Tyrian Hive City and spat curses through putrid vocal cords. "My lord, only a third of our men escaped," reported a pus-scarred sergeant. "The plague zombies used as cannon fodder are almost all dead or wounded." Yuba's hatred only hardened. Those damned corpse emperor pawns had ruined them. "Without Class, we must regroup," he ordered. "Gather the officers, find a defensible spot, and make camp. Await reinforcements." He swore silently that once help arrived, he would strike again and never fail the father. But just as they began to settle, a high whistling shriek tore through the air. Yuba looked up and saw massive aerial bombs falling in succession. The scattered rebels scattered again, screams rising as munitions detonated. "Why are they still coming?" Yuba howled, but the bombardment only intensified. Booms retched through the plain, flames shot skyward, and shockwaves rolled over the ground. Those who had survived the initial orbital strike were swallowed by the follow-up. Their souls, the narrator might have said, were torn into the rotting garden of Nurgle. Coughing and coughing, Yuba crawled from shelter. Nurgle's plague had given him unnatural endurance. He alone still lived amid the carnage. The plains around him were scorched and cratered. The makeshift camp lay in ruins. His last troops were gone. "Do these damned corpse emperor pawns only know how to bombard us?" he spat. The roar of engines answered him. Valkyrie gunships and thunderbolts swept in, trailing missiles that burst on impact. Wing-mounted multi-lasers and heavy bolters raked the ground. Laser and ballistics fell like an inescapable net. Surviving rebels were mowed down, scrambling for cover that did not exist. In the chaos, Yuba was shredded, torn into a heap of rotting flesh. After the airstrike, Qin Yun's forces and the players pushed the assault, and the rebels broke entirely. Pursuing for a distance to ensure the rout, Qin Yun then ordered a withdrawal back to Tyrian Hive City. He allowed the remaining rebels to flee to other Hive cities. The ground forces were exhausted from the siege and fighting in the outer tiers. They needed rest. Tyrian itself needed to be secured and rebuilt to serve as logistics for future operations. Knowing when to stop, Qin Yun judged, was wisdom. Thus, the Tyrian Hive City campaign ended. Qin Yun summoned several mechanical priests and tasked them with calculating the battlefield rewards for the players. The mechanical priests aboard the Imperial Glory gathered in the data control room. Using the Thinker system, they built models to settle the final rewards based on each player's battlefield performance. Performance included, but was not limited to, enemies killed, impact on the battle situation, civilians rescued, and critical intelligence recovered. Each item had detailed parameters for calculating rewards. Players like Old Bird and Wumu, who had overseen the orbital bombardment and never set foot on the ground, still received credit. Their contributions were visible in the data. The battle settlement moved quickly. After several reviews and confirmations, Qin Yun entered the results into the contribution point system and pushed reward notices to the players. Campaign settlement. Tyrene defense battle successfully concluded. Given your heroic performance, you have received contribution points. Players with data pads received the push immediately. Those without were told they could check the results aboard the Imperial Glory or at Leicard space station. They could not check in the Tyrene Hive City because the ground networks were not yet connected, and gene stealers still infested parts of the hives. Qin Yun's control over the hive network was not sufficient to take that risk. The Tyrene campaign brought rich rewards. Even newcomers who had fought for the first time earned 20 to 30,000 contribution points, enough to buy a basic exoskeleton from Dora Workshop. In addition to settling contribution points, Qin Yun captured some highlight videos and sent them to the chat groups. He chose not to produce a simple ranking by contribution points. That metric unfairly favored farming and support-type timestamps. Players like Dora, who could easily out-earn pure combat players. Such a ranking would demotivate frontline fighters rather than encourage them. It's time to open the warband system and the honor roll, he decided. We must calculate rankings by integrating multiple factors to stimulate players' initiative. We should cultivate their ability to take part in large-scale battles. Qin Yun tasked Jackdaw Priest with compiling the warband system and an honor calculation model. Once the program was completed, warbands and the honor ranking list would be launched. Warbands would require a minimum honor, could take on large combat missions with auxiliary army support, and be allowed to purchase certain special military equipment. The honor ranking list would comprehensively calculate a player's service to the Emperor into honor points and rank them accordingly. That morning on Holy Terra was the peak activity time for the Warhammer Cattle and Horse group. Many players logged out to go to work, so the group was busiest then, fresh from gaming all night. Everyone was in high spirits. The chat group had reached its 2,000-member limit, and Longshia's recruiting drive kept drawing in more applicants. Administrators created 2 new groups, Warhammer Cattle and Horse Group 2 and 3. As soon as Qin Yun posted the Tyrene Hive City videos, the 3 groups exploded, messages flooded in, and the counters jumped to 99+. The chat scrolled with excited banter. Gilliman is the only son. Why, such a brilliant campaign and I wasn't in it? I don't want to be a stinking can. Welcome to Old 13's daily wailing. Gilliman is the only son. JPG, I'm going to kill you, heretic. The most courageous brother of Warhammer. Fighting is still the best. This wave earned over 300,000 contribution points. Fatface who kisses Nurgle madly. I'm a bit at a loss. I earned 550,000, but ammo cost over 300,000. How did you earn so much? One night output Slanesh. 10 times. We caught a big fish. That's why we earned so much. At Second Empire Warmaster. Heh, too bad you weren't there. Second Empire Warmaster. Let you brag now. In a couple of days, I'll show you what it means to always be the big brother. Qi Tingjiang only wants to progress. A new player who only got 30,000 contribution points is trembling in this group. Dora, Lord of Myriad Machines. Brothers who need exoskeletons, speak up. I need to decide whether to take out another loan for another production line. While the players bantered, Qin Yun was busy. He boarded a Valkyrie to Tyrene Hive City to plan the city's reconstruction with its senior officials. He intended to make Atoma Planet a logistics base. Rebuilding could not be sloppy, and a proper management system had to be established. The lower classes could no longer be treated as subhuman. These people were valuable labor and living soldiers. Qin Yun also wanted contribution points linked to local currency and to inspect nobles like Governor Feng and Bishop Heidelake. If qualified, they would be authorized to issue tasks and become part of the player's operations. There was another priority, to identify which units in the Tyrene Hive City army were loyalists and which were G's groups. In the next operation, Qin Yun planned to send the G's to gnaw on the toughest targets, and in doing so, bind them more firmly to the Emperor. Before the arrival of the Great Devourer, the G's had been reliably loyal. Qin Yun expected many of them would welcome such a purpose. The Valkyrie's engines roared as it descended and touched down on the Tyrene Hive helipad. Planetary Governor Feng, Bishop Heidelake, and Casca, recently promoted to Tech Priest, waited at the pad. A group of pilgrims had gathered beyond the cordon, hoping to glimpse the guide's arrival. When the heavy hatch hissed open, Qin Yun, newly promoted and now often addressed as guide, stepped out. Nobles and onlookers stared. In a few days, his appearance had changed dramatically. His augmented physique made him appear almost mythic, as though a god had stepped down from legend. Emperor's light bless you all, he intoned. Seeing symptoms of plague among some onlookers, Qin Yun deployed the skills Blessing and Emperor's Light. Golden light coalesced and fell like warm rain across the crowd. The visible signs of the plague faded, and the sick recovered in moments. The miracle sent the pilgrims into raptures, praising the god Emperor and guide. Escorted into the hive, Qin Yun met with the city's nobles to discuss reconstruction. He ordered the Adeptus Mechanicus to apply biotechnology to build greenhouse farms, modify grain seeds to increase yields, and improve food production. The citizens of the empire should not be reduced to nutrient porridge and paste. With the technology available, food security had to be achieved. He also demanded schools for the hive children, basic instruction in physics, chemistry, and other sciences to cultivate a rational worldview. For advanced research, the Adeptus Mechanicus would select talent to ensure sensitive fields remained controlled. Too much unsupervised knowledge could be corrupted by a certain blue big bird, he quipped, and that had to be avoided. Governor Feng, Tech Priest Casca, Bishop Heidelake, and the other officials had no objections. Standing before them was a genuine messenger of the God Emperor. To oppose Guide would be to oppose the Emperor himself. After the meeting on reconstruction, Bishop Heidelake stepped forward, voice reverent. "My lord, have mercy and pour your light upon the poor people in the outer districts. They need miracles to survive."